Quack. Quack, quack, quack. Oh, quack, 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 quack.
Well then, I am your host, Adam Shamail.
And I'm cool guy, Aaron C. Schroeder.
That is right, cool guy, Aaron C. Schroeder, and I'm Lenny Mass, Adam Shamail, and this is the Quack 12 podcast, the most official, unofficial.
Hey, you are award-winning film cinematographer, Adam Shamail.
Wow,
ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Award-winning.
Wow. Well, director, but yeah. Oh my gosh, that is right. I have won an award in the 72-hour horror film festival in Eugene,
Hell
Oregon,
yeah.
which was a great time. I'll tell you what, I'll link to my film, my 3-minute film in this very episode. It is a
Link to the whole thing. Let everybody watch it. It's fucking awesome, dude. The community of Eugene's film auteurs came together and made a whole bunch of shit.
And your boy Aaron C. Schroeder is in it himself as well.
Right, I am.
Little spoiler
Cameo.
That is right. But also, this is the Quack 12 podcast, the most official, unofficial Oregon sporting podcast on the web. Sphere. And Aaron, we're winning games.
Baby doll. Okay.
I believe 9-0. I believe 9-0.
I believe you're correct as well. I'll have to go look at Google. Oh, wait, no, I won't. We're definitely 9-0. Now then, with all the excitement out of the way, we had us an injury.
Yes, we did. Couple. Remember our O lineman too, who's I feel like is unfortunately getting forgot about, but that one scares me almost more.
So the situation I believe that we're in at this point. Did we put a whooping down on Michigan? Sure, but anybody should. Personal feelings?
Kind of true.
Don't have any real knowledge.
Some knowledge. Yeah.
I will say this is quite literally that part of the season when broken bodies start appearing because of the nature of the sport.
Yeah. And
so I am pins and needles for these remaining 5 games.
Well,
5 games? No.
There's 3 games in the regular season.
Right, but then we have to win 2 games in the playoffs, and then we have to win the national championship.
And the Big Ten championship game.
So I
like
have to say, this week is the week I've been the most concerned about the boys in green.
I get you, man. I get you. Or
so I don't know.
Sometimes white, sometimes black, sometimes pink. So Tez Johnson, we still don't know specifically the injury. Obviously, it was some kind of shoulder thing.
Yeah. So I bet he dislodged it.
He had a sling too. I'll tell you this. There's at least some optimism, supposedly, that he could be back or that he will likely be back within this season. Sometimes there is some gamesmanship.
Jesus.
I'll tell you this. I mean, when you look at the game going up. Yeah, I know.
I mean,
you got Maryland.
Let him sit out 1 game for safety, but he'll be back. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
We're going to have him sit out this next game for safety. But then he's right back on because everything's actually
When
fine.
you look at the schedule, man, I don't know when you have to bring him back, especially since pass catcher is not like the place where we're hurting or thin. Like we have so many freaking good pass catchers.
That's a great point.
Like just slow.
And they were shining. They were shining, baby doll.
Slow looked fucking great. Holden dispat on nobody and looked really good. So we actually got some people back from injury in this game, like Jordan Birch, our pass rusher. That was nice to see. So what we got here is, Tez Johnson. I mean, because we got Maryland coming up. They don't look very good and it's at home. Then we've got on the road Wisconsin. That is kind of scary because of the road environment, but Wisconsin does not look very good, especially on offense. And again, I've been saying this over and over because it's been the same situation over and over. If you can't score points, if that's a big problem for you, you're not beating the Ducks because we're really good at limiting points.
Here's the thing.
What?
I like where you're going with this thought. I'm going to amend it just slightly.
Yeah.
If you're not good at scoring points, Sports is not for you.
Yeah, you would
Yeah,
think
you
so.
should stop with the sports.
Big Ten football's for you, apparently, though, because all these motherfuckers can. And then we got a bye week, which is huge again. So that's 3 weeks. Yeah. And this bye's really fun because it comes right before our final regular season of the game against Washington, who I would say I would upgrade to is mid. They're not terrible. They're certainly not good. They are, as the kids say, mid. And but that is in Autzen. That is a team that is like, if we win this, we're 12-0 and we go to the Big Ten championship. Not only that, we fucking hate Washington. We've lost to them 3 times in a row. So like the energy in that is going to be insane. So Washington is actually our toughest challenge on paper. And again, they're at home and we are going to be at least 2 scores favorited. So I don't know where you bring Tez Johnson in that. And then there's the Big Ten championship game. That is huge. Obviously, we would want everybody. So maybe, hopefully that's
is this
5 weeks away?
Is this just how are we just talking matter of factly of that we are going, in fact, to the Big Ten championship on our way to the national championship?
We're betting favorites to make it there.
Currently.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, what scares me a lot more, Marcus Harper was injured there, our right guard, and that scares me because we know what we looked like the first couple of weeks. Not great.
But we've had many weeks of learning, practicing, understanding.
Yes.
Which I feel like week 3 or 4 is when we deduced here on the show. Oh, we now know what the issue is, so we just need to resolve it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they did. So
you hope so. Well, I mean, they resolved it by getting their 5 guys, but now officially, we don't have those 5 guys that we were just talking about. So we'll see what happens.
Do we still have 4 of them? Is it just the one?
It's just the one.
Okay.
Pray to God, knock on wood, that that guy doesn't get injured, because that would suck.
Dude, but, why you say shit like that?
I don't know. I'm horrified because we're so close.
I mean, we're so close. I can't handle it. I don't like it, actually. Part of me wants a game to have been lost, so that way it's just a blemish. The blemish is already there. I can't handle a blemish now. I think I might lose my shit.
I get what you mean. Well, luckily we're not like saving the hardest games for last. Like technically we played the hardest games and we have 2 road games. That's pretty cool. But I get what you mean, dude. I'm freaking nervous as hell.
So who's looking like
but Harper injury wise, we're not 100%. He could literally be there next week and we wouldn't know. But because he's pretty tight-lipped about injuries. And I just don't know, dude. To tell you the truth, I really don't. I guess I just hope it'd be really nice to get these, at least Harper, back by, I don't know, Wisconsin. Who's to say, man? We'll figure out what the fuck happens, but we still should be good, even not at 100% against the remaining, roster. So that's or the remaining schedule, hopefully. And hopefully Harper can heal up, and hopefully we win it all, because I want.
If we don't think that Tez's injury is a big deal because we're so deep, then I feel great there. If our next 2 games are pretty easy, I do think the one thing that teams have kind of started to try with us, or what they've had to understand, is that it seems like you do kind of have to constantly be blitzing with us, but you're always. So anyway,
I mean,
I'm curious to see how the offensive line holds up.
Yeah,
if teams continue to be like, oh, the only actual shot we have here is just a blitz every time.
I bet you there'll be a bit of that, because they're, at least for a little bit, if Marcus Harper's not out there immediately, they'll be like, okay, they jumbled up the O-line. I'm not sure if any of these teams have the pass rusher that unless we literally revert back to week 1 Oregon. Like, I don't know if anyone has the pass rushers to fully take advantage, especially if we're looking into it like, okay, Dylan Gabriel, just get the ball out of your hands really quick. Or like, maybe they're better at run blocking. Let's just fucking run through these motherfuckers. These guys.
I mean,
yeah.
Dylan Gabriel to me has also shown a bit more confidence in his legs as far as being like, okay, maybe I'll go.
How about that TD run, eh?
Yeah. I mean, he grabs those every so often. That's kind of a trip. And I never even expect it. I never think, oh, yeah, this is the quarterback that will every so often will run it in 15 yards.
He's a smaller guy, so you're confused, but he's got some legs on him. The other thing, so we went to the big house. We kicked some freaking butt. We played in front of 110,000 people. Again, we get max in Oregon is 60,000. And they're like, oh, that's why they were saying Oregon's going to be quiet. They don't know what Big Ten noise is. But I'll tell you, everyone online and Big Ten fans and people who were literally there were like, yeah, cool experience. It's insane how many people are there. I think it's the most amount of people Oregon's ever played for even. And they were literally like, not that loud. That may be because we were kicking their butts.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've heard multiple podcasts of people that were there that are neutral even. Just being like, yeah, it's not that loud of a place. And what it comes down to,
brother,
which awesome,
the Pacific Northwest is home to the loudest, heaviest music you've ever heard in your entire life. Of course, everything about this place screams, we turn it up.
We turn straight up, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I'm like,
get the fuck out of
our
here.
home field advantage against Ohio State, that just ridiculous game. It's just got me feeling like our crowd's going to be in it for Maryland and Washington. And I don't know, they're just not world beaters. And this Wisconsin on the road, Wisconsin is definitely Maryland is kind of just a broken team. They don't do anything all that good. Full stop. But
they're my best friends, and we love them.
We're going to keep it close just for them because we love the Terrapins. But Wisconsin, they used to be big boy football. We'll dominate you on the lines. They can't. If we get a 14-point lead on them, they ain't coming back, knock on woods. They just don't have the QB play. They don't have the skill players. Our defense is too fucking good for them to come back on us. And I love.
Has this been a slow unraveling for them as a franchise, or is this a fairly new thing because of staffing issues, or
they
what? They
used to be so freaking consistently good. They never were winning the Big Ten, but they would be frequently appearing in the Big Ten championship game and then getting their butt kicked.
Sure. We talking early 2000s or what? How long ago? When was their heyday?
I don't even know when their heyday was. If I remember correctly, I want to double check this, but I believe Wisconsin, like Oregon, is one of those programs where you're okay, they are good, they're consistent, they've got very passionate fan bases. However, I'm looking at it right now, 0 national championships.
Right. They pull the mid card every year, basically.
Yeah. Or
they do what we've been having to do, and then all of a sudden they have a little pop.
They're now mid. Well, they're us, but without the money. So they're now straight up mid. And they used to be consistent.
P.S. That is a really fucked up statement, and I don't know that we should condone it to say that because someone doesn't have as much money as someone else, they are therefore mid.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you lived in the United States. I thought this was America.
Yeah, we gotta reverse we gotta shake that up. Though.
It's certainly college football, so that's just how the way it rolls, baby. In this Michigan game, the other thing is how much trickery. They did actually have a decent success for a little chunk throwing the ball for a second. Because remember, I said they were going to get less than 32 passing yards.
That's right. You did.
There was a bit where I was like, oh my God, I'm on pace. I'm on track. But they actually did open it up a little in the air, had a little success.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the amount of painstaking process they had to do to get any amount of yards. Like for them, their first touchdown was because yes, Tez Johnson was injured, and so he wasn't returning, and so they got that short field. And then when it was when it was a 2-score game in the second half, and it was like, okay, you guys are like in your red zone. It's like, I believe it was 4th down or something like that. Crucial, like, what do you got? This is it. They're doing some trickeration where they're trying to throw it to their running quarterback.
Ridiculous, dude.
And he doesn't get it in, and then the camera almost kills him. Like, it's just like any team that has to do this much to move the ball on us, you ain't beating us. Like, I would.
And also, it seems like a few different teams have been having to go to that extreme.
Yes. Not even against us. A lot of teams have to do that just to do it against worse defenses. Like
against USC.
Dude. Oh my God. This Penn State, you should see this Penn State Ohio State game that happened. It honestly
really,
it was like good as in it was close. But Penn State, dear Lord, they can't do anything on offense.
Who did Nebraska play?
Nebraska. I definitely watched them this game. I remember they lost. Oh, I want to say UCLA.
Was it UCLA or USC?
UCLA.
There was some kind of crazy interception that happened in that game too. That was like the hand of God came down and helped out for 3 seconds.
More like the hand of Raiola, dude. Like, yeah, he got injured. So we'll talk about all those other games. But the point is, so many of these Big Ten teams just have inept offenses.
Yeah,
and I just don't see you beating the Ducks if that's what you got. There's a handful of teams that, in this that I think could give us an L. Indiana still undefeated, still got a pretty fun, ferocious offense. We'll see how they go against Ohio State. That is their one big game this season. If they beat Ohio State, they'll likely play us in the championship, the Big Ten. If they don't, they likely won't. It'll probably be Ohio State. That's really kind of coming down to that in the end. But they actually have an offense. Ohio State, yes, they have an offense. Then we'll have to think about like USC and Washington have semblances of an offense. Mm-hmm. They played a game too that got me so pissed, my man. I was so angry. USC blows. Oh my God. And Lincoln Riley's a goddamn moron. That being said, let's bring on our friend who is absolutely not a moron. In fact, he's a very smart, cool guy. And you should go over to Quack to read his shit. We got Hythloday of Addicted to Quack at Hythloday1 on Twitter. How's it going, Hyth?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's like obviously the injuries got me a little worried, but it's also kind of nice that after playing in the big house, I'm not thinking about like, oh, we looked a little rough there, or that was a close one, or like, oh man, Michigan still got it in the big. It's like, no, that game was not much of a game, quite frankly. And yeah, I'm mainly thinking about, let me ask you about this. For me, all the conversations is about Tez Johnson, and obviously I wish him well. Like he's such a good player. He is a dynamic player, but that isn't the injury that actually has got me scared so much, because we have a lot of really good pass catchers. The one that's got me really scared is Marcus Harper. I know the info's still up in the air. Like Dan Lanning even said in the interviews, like, oh, I talked to him. He said he's good, but I don't really believe Dan Lanning in a lot of these situations. Just because I
believe in him. I don't always believe him.
Yeah. And I know we didn't get, a ton of tape on a Harperless O-line, but we did get like the first play was like, holy crap. Like, we got blown up. What are your thoughts on these injuries and what they could mean? And yeah, in general, because I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway for Duck fans from this game right now.
That's our headline.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Tez Johnson first. It's sad, of course.
Yeah.
And he's, obviously a pretty dynamic playmaker. It's hard to, around the country.
The punt return brother. Yeah, he's also Bo Nix's brother. Adopted.
But
right. And he right out, he's not out there. Pelham fumbles the return, and that's one of the only touchdowns.
Let me circle back to the punt return stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of comparative impact, he's obviously, a dynamic playmaker after the catch, which is a huge amount of Will Stein's offense is creating opportunities for that. It's widely noted now for a couple of years under Will Stein that the air yards is not so high, and that it's but I can tell you from studying the film, it's engineered to create yards after, to create spaces in the defense so that the athletes aren't creating that out of whole cloth. They're, it's the offense is engineering that. And so it's not just about the athlete, taking advantage of that. It's about the athletes, the other athletes on the field creating that space. Right. The entire route pattern creates that. And so, each fewer dynamic athlete that you have on the field, that causes the defense to react in that way, constrains his teammates. So,
right. Gotcha.
That's how all the puzzle pieces, fit together. And so that's the question about how Oregon steps up, its wide receiver core steps up and replaces, Tez Johnson, is to what extent do defenses react to Oregon's wide receiver core in the same way, give the same space, clear out in the same way.
We showed them with Michigan.
Have the same
have 2 extra feet of speed on
when
you.
They're covering in man, that's the thing that's interesting. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on that going forward. I mean, sort of the fortunate thing in terms of Oregon's remaining games on the schedule, since I've been watching the film on all of those teams, is that each one of those, I don't really think much of their defensive back groups. And so I sort of, both A, I don't think much of their groups, and B, I think the one that has the best is probably Washington, but sort of Washington quite famously for several years, and it's continued under the new coaching staff, deliberately gives you a lot of space. And so I think it just sort of a fortunate draw in that sense, or silver lining to the dark cloud, is that factor of how much space are you going to get in the backfield with having one fewer super dynamic playmaker will probably not be as constrained as it might be against teams that are more likely to than if the schedule had a bunch of teams that were more likely to play tighter in the absence of Tez Johnson, because I don't think such teams are on Oregon's remaining schedule by the time that Johnson comes back on the roster, which is the other half of this news. The social media reports have indicated that he may be back as soon as December. So if Oregon is fortunate enough to make it to Indianapolis, you may see him in that game.
We were saying that seems like the game, there's going to be so many times that we may honestly not, these may be double touchdown leads against, knock on wood, Maryland, Wisconsin, hopefully Washington, especially after a bye. Why would you need him in there when Lowe was looking pretty dang good out there?
He does look very good. And honestly, he's a better blocker.
Interesting.
Creates more opportunities in the screen game. And then as for the offensive line, Kawika Rogers went in.
That's right.
Which was anticipated. That's not a surprise. And then that Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant would sort of knock him back. He knocks everybody back. He was knocking Marcus Harper back.
That what they have. On this.
It's not like we wanted to Tristan's film study article went up this morning, just before we started recording this podcast, and it's not like we were running to dump all over the guy since he's, now out, but Marcus Harper had the lowest grades,
You did say that even early on. I do remember you saying that, because like Pickard was getting a lot of like crap because it's like, well, this is the guy who's the lowest ranked and he's not supposed to be out there. But I remember you saying from early on, it's not one guy getting blown up consistently. It's everyone making some uncharacteristic mistakes as a unit. And that overall Harper was maybe actually doing kind of the, making some more mistakes.
I mean, two things about that. It's sort of, there's two components there. One is that in those first two games, when whatever the crazy mystery effect is, which I still don't understand
Idaho.
what the crazy
the state of Idaho.
Playing the potato teams.
Potatoes.
The potato blight.
The elixir of potato that they all have, I guess.
Dude.
The antidote of potato.
During the potato blight games, the maybe I shouldn't say that though, because they played in Research Stadium and played very well, and that apply, right? The potato salad palace.
That is true.
Anyway, those games, much of my complaints about the offensive line blocking was like conspicuously and bizarrely poor technique, where they're like lunging and playing with like curved backs, not flat backs, and bending at the waist, not at the knees. And I could go on for a long time about offensive line technique, but you're just gonna have to trust me. It's just like, whoa, that's real sloppy. That like, what did you all regress to the level of Pop Warner players? Like, what the hell, man? And then they immediately clean that up in week 3, and you're like, oh, okay, so I don't understand why you were doing that, and then I don't understand why you all remembered how to be offensive linemen again. Like, that's very bizarre. But then separate from that, like, different issue is, which guys are, when they face, top level defensive linemen, give the most ground. The guy who was giving the most was, Pickard. I'm kind of no surprise there. It's why I said going forward, like, this guy doesn't trouble me during the non-con play, but when they get to Big Ten play, they got to find an alternate, solution. And thank God they did. But guy number 2, who was giving the most ground when he was, facing. And so we saw that against UCLA, with Jay Toia, who's very good. He's, close to a 5-star, defensive lineman. That's why USC and UCLA were fighting over him so bad. And he wound up going to both. Harper was getting knocked back, by that guy. And basically, it's kind of been a consistent thing, is that guy sort of gives the most ground. And, you saw it against, Ohio State, you saw it against Michigan. Like, Oregon's fortunate in playing, other teams that don't really have that guy. And
Michigan,
really
that's what they ruins of what they were from last year.
Exactly. But the one, column still standing in their Parthenon is those that. So and so then when Kawika Rogers has to go out there, okay.
At least he was the first play too, or first drive. Like, it kind of felt better.
Sort of like, welcome back to college football, Kawika. Exactly. Kind of like, Mark Few's kid getting dunked on. Welcome to the game, son. So there's that. The other thing but hey, if that guy needs to be the guy going forward, like, it's not all going to be Michigan, and it's not all going to be his first rep. So like, there's and he's known that he's going to have to be, it's not like he's sitting on the sideline, eating orange slices for 6 months. He's known, like,
he played in all 14 games.
Right. He's been playing, Tristan's been documenting that, in his article. He's like, when it goes to garbage time, he's the first guy in. Like, he's been their 6th man. Like, they said that in the spring. When we saw that in the spring, like, it's been very, like, the coach's commentary has been, he's been the 6th man. Now, the other question is, what's the health status of Dave Yulee and Matthew Bedford? Apparently, Dave Yulee was spotted on the sidelines, fully dressed, no boot, and was warming up in practices. Now, I didn't get to see the practices. This game was played in Ann Arbor, but the media who did travel to the game, spotted him and was like, he looks like he's 100%. Now, they didn't put Dave Yulee in. And I actually saw on Twitter that some fan remarked on Twitter, hey, they should have thrown in Dave Yulee, and then James Crepia, the Oregonian, took a big dump all over that guy about that would have been foolish, to throw that guy in after having not played, not really practiced, and go up against Kenneth Grant. Like, that would have been a dumb idea. But it may be that if he's now, back to ready to play, but then a week of practices and then go up against Maryland's, defensive line, like, actually that might make a lot of sense, because we'll talk about Maryland later, but what I can tell you about Maryland is actually pretty interesting, is that their defense is not very good. But the one thing that they kind of have going for them on the defensive side of the ball is their defensive rush stats are not bad. They're not the best or anything, but they're above water. It's because they like every other position that they have on the field is not very good. Their OLB, it's a 5 down front, kind of like Illinois and Purdue is, where they have like 3 down linemen, and then it's a double eagle, 2 OLBs on the side, on each side. The OLBs, nothing to write home about. The ILBs are a liability. The defensive backfield is a mess. And so everything about their defense, even the 3 fist down linemen. The thing about their 3 fist down linemen, it's Akinbasote, Quayshawn Fuller, and I'm blanking on the third guy's name. They've been playing for Maryland forever. It's like 4 years I've been watching these guys tape, and it's not that they're no Kenneth Grant. Like, they're not first round draft picks or anything. I actually would be surprised if any of them were drafted. They may be UDFAs, but they've been playing forever. They're veterans, and what I can tell you from watching them in the run game is that, like, they know what they're doing. Like, and I appreciate that from watching. Guys who, like, they set the edge, they know what they're doing. Yeah. And so, like, that's actually, like, almost perfect in terms of that's what you want to throw a guy in to test him, is like, this guy's not the best talent in the world, but he knows what he's doing. So why don't you go, test yourself in a game where, Oregon is playing at home, friendly environment, and, all the other situations.
A safe space, if you will.
Yeah,
safe
basically,
space.
It's a safe space to practice, but against a guy who knows what he's doing. Like, yeah, that's kind of perfect, actually.
Who also really wants to beat you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but cool. Also against a team that maybe,
it's Maryland.
They have the advantage against, in other ways. So, like, I could actually see them being like, hey, Dave, let's go. Or if Bedford is ready. I don't know. I don't know what the health status of any of these
could
guys
be Harper.
Or if it has to be Rogers, it may be Rogers. Or maybe Harper, maybe it was just a one game thing for Harper. Harper's like, I don't know. I'm just saying that Maryland actually sort of creates perfect conditions for this.
Yeah. Wisconsin, only because it's on the road. Like, I've been watching Wisconsin. I know I should not be afraid of Wisconsin per se, but the road game still fears me. Like, it's still
Wisconsin is sort of the other way around, like, in every way, where, like, it's a road environment. Their defensive line room has sort of been wrecked because, for complicated reasons, but, like, they don't have the depth at all. And it might be kind of a fool's gold thing because, like, they could get exhausted real fast. And Oregon could destroy them, but it might be fool's gold.
I got a random question for you. This just crossed my mind, and I wanted to make sure to ask you this. Do you think Luke Altmaier would win the starting job if he was playing for Michigan? Do you think they'd be a better team? Yeah, they'd be something, right? Like something.
Because Davis Warren's interesting because, like, he definitely played his best game last week, although it's hard to know whether or not that's just the curse of the Ducks, where, like, hey, are you a struggling quarterback? Play the Ducks. You'll have your best game.
I was telling Aaron, there was a minute in that first half where I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to hit they're not hitting 32 yards in this game? But no, he actually, there was a couple drives.
I think if Sharon Moore hadn't lost his nerve and pulled Davis Warren after the interceptions and just stuck with the guy, like, he might have evolved into that form by, earlier.
This was truly one of the biggest cases of that I've seen played out. If you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got 0 quarterbacks. It's
because
what are you doing?
I could tell from watching all that film, his issue was decision making and experience, and how you resolve that problem. It wasn't physical talent, as anybody who watched that game could tell you the same thing that I saw from watching him in the 4 games that he played, which was, for a walk-on, he's got the arm, he's got the legs, he's got what he needs physically. The reason he was a walk-on was that he was actually relatively new to being a quarterback. I think he was a wide receiver in high school, and that why
didn't they throw it to him then instead of Orgy?
Yeah, right. I think I may be misremembering this. I'm sorry if I am, but I believe it was one of these situations where he was a wide receiver and then his quarterback got hurt, and so the coach in high school was like, "Oh, okay, Davis, I need you to be the quarterback," and then it was like, "Oh, we love you, a quarterback," and so that he walked on to Michigan as a quarterback, and so it was he didn't really have all that training as a quarterback. Well, it's you could give him some on the field training, coach, if you just stuck with him. You had to know this year was a write-off, but then he blinked and he put in Orgy, and Orgy can't throw the ball.
It's genuinely with Orgy, it's he was a very impressive runner. It's amazing. He almost killed that.
They should have made him a running back.
Yeah.
They have reserved Edwards for the Edwards is a short Edwards is a short yardage back, but they had. It's it took them too long to realize that they had Mullings and Edwards reversed. They had Mullings pegged as a short yardage back. No, he's an every down back. They had Edwards pegged as an every down back. No, he's a short yardage back. They had Orgy pegged as a quarterback. No, he's your outside runner, change of pace guy. An occasional trick play, maybe he can throw the ball. You have Warren, pegged as your, backup. No, he's your starter. You need to stick with him. It's everything about their skill talent. You've got a slot receiver pegged as your outside receiver because you didn't go get, more guys in the transfer portal. Everything about the Michigan skill talent was mismanaged. Oh, and offensive line, we failed to develop, these guys. So we're going to take a couple of transfers and it blew up. Or right tackle, we had a good right tackle, but we stupidly didn't start that guy. Instead, we started a redshirt freshman. He gets eaten alive. Everything about the offensive side of the ball for Michigan has been mismanaged. And they, and who did they promote to the head coach, the offensive line / offensive coordinator? It's
can we talk about his challenge too? I just want to say that was not very smart challenge, very stupid challenge. When the game was really game,
it was the catch on the sideline in which he catches the ball, he has a foot and a knee in bounds, and then as he's going to the ground, he loses the ball. Which when you catch the ball, there's actually the rule set for catching the ball is totally different whether you catch the ball on your feet versus whether you're catching the ball in the air going to the ground. People have a hard time understanding this, but it's the sections in the rule book are completely different. If you catch the ball and you're a runner or just standing there, you're on your feet, then it's a completely different rule set. Right. If, on the other hand, you are not on your feet, if you're jumping in the air, if you are going to the ground, if you are not on your feet, then different rule set. Obviously, it was the latter. What rule set applies is it's not, the instant you've secured the ball and have a foot down, then that's it. The play's over. You've secured the catch. Nope. You have to maintain control through contact with the ground, which he obviously doesn't do. The ball goes flying out of his hands. It actually hits Sharon Moore in the face. How do you not know? I may be misremembering.
You challenge that one, but you don't challenge the Evan Stewart first touchdown. Which definitely
well, that one he probably couldn't see very well.
I mean, both those non-touchdowns that Evan Stewart one he didn't actually catch, and then one he did catch that got taken away.
And has the totally that one's totally a heartbreaker too, because
it's beautiful.
IDP, the player who's ineligible downfield is not affecting the play.
Oh, he's on the right. Yeah. I mean,
it's
the
totally
refs,
not. I mean, there's some film that I was reviewing just the other day. It was the Maryland USC game where Maryland has an IDP flag, or they have a non-flag. It's USC turns the ball over. Maryland's on like USC's 18-yard line. They run an RPO. I think it's the left guard, or maybe it's the center, runs forward, and it actually materially affects the play because the linebacker that he's about to engage doesn't drop back and play pass defense against the slant pass behind him, which is
he's
the guy who's defend that play, because he's being engaged in run blocking by the ineligible man downfield, that the refs don't call that, and the slant pass then goes for a touchdown, that the refs don't call that that's an IDP that materially affects the play and is that's real bad, guys. This one is extremely technical. It's on the opposite side of the play. It's 70 yards away. No one is affected. He's just trotting down the field, getting ready for the next play. It's the kind of thing, Did
the ref do a wrong
the ref
thing?
Discretion not to throw that flag. And I know that fans throw this around a lot. It's probably a pretty clear case of makeup call. They're
sure.
Screwed up the first Evan Stewart touchdown, so now we're take this one off the board on the technicality.
It really kind of did feel that way.
But it doesn't matter. Wigan scored a touchdown on that drive 3 plays later. So
we still have the highlight. It looked really good.
Which, had they called the first one a non-touchdown, we would have still scored a touchdown.
I mean, Oregon would have been 4th and 2. Dan Lanning would have gone for it.
Yeah. Big balls, Dan. Oh yeah. Dan Lanning also, I loved when we were about to punt the ball away. We had that funky punt. And then a little less
totally engineered. That was 100% engineered.
Is he just hoping? Because so that
was a recent rule change too.
Oh, recent.
That was only 2 years ago that they made that rule change.
So the rule is you got the guy snapping the ball. You can't be lining up.
If it's a long snapper, there's actually no definition of a long snapper, but a kick in which the dude receiving the kick is more than 10 yards back. But you can't line up directly over that guy on a scrimmage kick.
And because they did it kind of quick, strange for
so basically, if you watch that play, they change it around in such a way where the last Michigan defender is I don't know where I'm supposed to line up. I guess I'll line up over this guy. And it's engineered to get him to do that.
It's so
I like to believe,
and they only did it, and they've only done it once on in a situation where they needed to punt, but it was within 5 yards to get.
We're playing chess,
first down,
dude. I like to believe that Lanning has a kid on Ritalin tucked away in some basement room, just analyzing every word of the rule book.
The thing
hey, here's the thing.
Essentially,
I've stopped doing it because I feel like the project ran its course. But a couple of years ago, for 7 years, what I did while I was doing various other film study projects is every time I found a play that I had a question about the officiating, whether I found the officiating questionable, or why was there a flag there, or why wasn't there a flag there, I would clip out a video of it, and at the end of the year, I would put all of them together and I would post it on Reddit, where there are a bunch of working officials at all levels of the game, and I say, here's all my questions, and it would usually be 30 questions, and there'd be all these. Have them all answer, and usually about 90% of them, they would all have the same answers, and then the last 5 of them, they'd have little debates. And I learned so much about it. I learned so much about mechanics and officiating. I learned that there's a whole separate. It's not a rule book, but it's the guidance that they issue to officials, which is really interesting. Anyway, I learned a ton about the mechanics of officiating.
I kind of want to get into the guidance, because that sounds a little like a
the guidance
Masonic.
is really interesting. It shows like the mechanics of officials, it will totally cause you to understand why a foul can be occurring right that appears to be right in front of an official, but he doesn't see it. It's because of where, if you understand the 8 different officials on the field, what their keys are, like what they're looking at,
where they're actually looking.
They're not actually looking at the thing that's right in front of them. They're looking past that to something else because that's that guy's or gal's assignment. Anyway, the mechanics of officiating are fascinating. There should really be more like 16 officials. There's way too much going on the field for 8 officials to be doing, and they also need to be paid way more.
4 eyes?
Ooh,
I think that's possible at this point. Ask Cal and their CRISPR technology.
Let's just kill the refs and put in cameras everywhere and have them review.
Why do we need to kill the refs? Do you mean metaphorically?
Just get rid of them. They've already got day jobs. Let them go have their day jobs. We'll just have robots do it. Maybe we have cameras everywhere.
It's also giving me just like a ton of empathy for the officials. This is just a super hard job. There's just like so many different, I think, myths about like officiating that are just BS.
Blind.
Only some of them are blind. I mean, this game was an awesome butt kicking. I love the third quarter it's very clear. I feel like it's just like, obviously it's kind of a talking point now where we've had some bad third quarters. I think the majority of that can be written off by like, we have huge leads. There's a few random execution errors that are, and then like, Dan Lanning's being like, this team cannot come back from this deficit. Let's be fucking real.
The play calling clearly changes. Here, I'll just quote you some lines from Tristan's article. The run pass splits. First half, it's run pass splits are 16-23. So 16 runs, 23 passes, right? So that they're passing like 7 times more than they're running. In the second half, run pass splits are 21-12. So they're running almost twice as often as they're passing.
Killing the clock.
Average time between plays increases by more than 5 seconds. And then And then if you look at, success rates, basically Michigan's success rates, I know it feels like Michigan must have been succeeding, a whole bunch more. They're really not. Like, it's really, they hit one more explosive passing play than what their per play numbers were in the first half. But otherwise, like, it's exactly the same. And like, Oregon's basically playing the same defensive quality. And it's just like, that's what, when a team only ever moves the ball when they hit an explosive pass, and your brain latches onto those things. Like, so they hit like 2 explosive passes in the first half. They hit like 3 explosive passes in the second half. And so you're like, oh my God, it's happening all the time. Like, it's like, that's it. But, that's what happens, with your brain. If you run out the numbers, it's like, oh, this is the only thing that's different is that Oregon is, eating fat clock, which is exactly what happens. And then when they needed to, just to ice the game, they go on a long touchdown drive, which, infuriated gamblers, but, and go straight to hell. Like,
I thought it was pretty fun.
Like,
I thought it was pretty fun at the very end to decide to cover when they could have just need it. They're like, you know what? Because they were at the line that I saw more often was like, Ducks were 14.5 point favorites, and we were up 14. And Dan Lanning's like, I'm going to help out the fans here. I'm sure it was more like practice or tiebreaker scenarios or whatever, but it was also just funny.
The first, so I said that I would comment about the punt. The punts. Okay. So before I say all of this, there's you have to be careful with the thought experiment that I'm about to talk about, because there's this thing in analytics, or this trap in analytics that it goes like this: all of my misfortunes are tragedies, all of your misfortunes are fate. which basically means like if you're conducting a thought experiment to correct for stuff, you need to avoid the problem of like, oh, I'll just get rid of all the bad, unlucky, fluky, weird stuff that happened to me because it was bad, unlucky, fluky, and weird.
Yeah.
But all the bad, unlucky, fluky, and weird stuff that happened to you,
it's because
you deserve that. Right? That was inevitable. Like that's not fluky or weird or bad luck. That's because you suck, and that stuff was gonna, like, no, man, it either all counts or none of it counts. Like it's you need to understand, it's for everybody everything is all tragedies, and for everybody all things are fate. Like, and so you can't go too far with this. And whenever you conduct a thought experiment in which you're changing reality for the purposes of conducting a hypothetical thought experiment, you need to be very limited in what you're doing and for a very clear purpose,
because you will create an alternate universe.
Yeah. Hey, go out and vote. Just 2024.
You see this. You see this on message boards, all the time, where it's like, "Hey, look, if I just, change these 5 things about the game, then we would win." And it's like,
next thing you know, you're fucking talking to QAnon about.
Yeah. Let me guess. The 5 things about the game that you would change are all in your favor, and that all the things that the other team, you lock those in stone, right? Yeah. So anyway. If we conduct the thought experiment of what would happen if Ryan Pelham, waved his arm.
Yeah.
Right. What would happen?
Didn't drop it, but waved his arm. Yeah.
Right. Just fair caught the ball right there. Mm-hmm. If you run out the, what the per play numbers are from charting in the first half, what the success rates are for both Oregon, Oregon's offense against Michigan's defense, and Michigan's offensive versus Oregon's defense. What you get is basically, Oregon had 5 meaningful possessions, Michigan had 6 in reality. Basically, Oregon loses a possession, Michigan gets an extra possession. What would have happened had Ryan Pelham, fair caught that ball, is at the rate and at the pace that Oregon was playing, Oregon would have gotten 1 more possession, at which they would have at minimum gotten a field goal. And they would have, taken enough time. Michigan still probably the pace at which they were playing probably wouldn't have excluded Michigan from getting their 6th possession. So it would have been, instead of 5 for Oregon and 6 for Michigan, it still would have been, it would have been 6 possessions for Oregon, 6 meaningful possessions for Michigan. Michigan still technically had a 7th possession, but it was just a kneel down. That's why I'm saying 6 meaningful. So it would have been 6-6. We already know what happened on Michigan's 5 of their 6 meaningful possessions. They didn't really go anywhere. They got a field goal on 1. And that was on the very last meaningful one where they hit an explosive to level end, and then that trick play, the flea flicker where Betcher, you didn't make the tackle. And even then they only got a field goal out of that. The only touchdown that they got was on that, short field. Had they not gotten a short field, they wouldn't, probably be able to drive the field, which indicates that the most likely outcome, like the middle of the probability curve, is that Oregon scores between 3 and 7 more points, and Michigan, in the alternate universe in which Ryan Pelham waves his arm, is that Oregon scores between 3 and 7 more points, and Michigan, scores 7 fewer points, because they get the same number of possessions, but are not able to move the ball. And so therefore Ryan Pelham not waving his arm constitutes somewhere between a 10 and 14 point swing. And so in the alternate universe in which Ryan Pelham waves his arm, the score at halftime is either 31-3 or 35-3, not 28-10. That's what the numbers from fundamentals, tell you. So, and then that's a super high leverage moment, right? Ryan Pelham not waving his arm is the highest leverage moment in the game. Like it creates the greatest disparity, between 2 events. Right, two alternate universes, like that's the biggest spike, biggest splice. And the reason why, Tristan and I talked about it, when he was writing his article, he and I both came to the same conclusion, which is start garbage time at halftime, because A, there's a massive play calling difference, and B, look, man, if Ryan Pelham waved his arm, the score from fundamentals would be at minimum like 31-3. Would anybody have a problem with that? 31-3, declaring that as the beginning of garbage time? Like, because it's Oregon's final drive, final meaningful possession of the first half. They go on an 8-play drive that's the drive that has the taken away Evan Stewart touchdown, but they still wind up scoring on the quarterback draw for Gabriel where he runs 23 yards. And they score that, basically as time expired, not quite as time expires because Michigan kneels down, but you know what I mean? So like, so that's the score that takes it to 28-10. In the alternate universe, that's the score that would have taken it to 35-3. Obviously garbage time would begin at that point. Sorry, that was a long digression. I
don't know though.
I just mean
you can't
that, like,
really presume that the rest of the first half would continue to go as if it already did, right? Minus this one set of plays.
I think you can actually presume that because the numbers up through. That's what I'm saying, is that the per play statistics up through the moment where Dylan Gabriel crosses that end line with 35 seconds remaining 22 seconds remaining in the first half all indicate exactly that, Aaron.
Okay.
Like that's
because it has to be reset at the second half because that's
when the play calling change happened. Essentially, right. Dan Lanning is operating as though he were in the alternate universe, is what I'm trying to say.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you this: if he
is in an alternate universe,
if he does wave that off, I have it under good authority. Don't ask me how, but actually, Trump wins the presidency if that happens. So that was a close one. Let's just say that.
Wait, we don't want him to win.
We don't. Yeah. We've changed politics.
I put my thing in wrong.
Oh no!
So anyway, the game. I don't know. You watched the first half. Like basically, the game proceeded as expected. There's Oregon's success rate is very high. They even break off. Actually, they broke off more explosive runs than I was expecting to see. But still, the one column of the ruined Parthenon is they have a hard time running up the middle because of course they do. But they found ways around that. Michigan couldn't defend the pass. They had even more difficult time defending the pass because they had not one but two of their corners out. They had to move their nickel out to outside corner, and so they had a backup dude going. I was a little disappointed with a couple aspects. I felt like there were more ways that Stein could have taken advantage of Michigan's defense that he forwent.
Well, you don't want to embarrass them.
One was that I felt like there were opportunities in the middle of the field to take advantage of that he didn't. Second was I thought he could have taken the top off more. I mean, Gabriel missed on really the one. He underthrew the ball. That was unfortunate. That was the one drive they punted on in the first half. And then I felt like they only got about half of the benefit of manipulating the defense. Oh, so Michigan did an interesting thing. They treated Kenyon Sadiq like he was a wide receiver for the purposes of their defensive substitution rules. So Michigan, when you go to two tight ends, will always put in a third defensive tackle and go to a 5-2. So three defensive tackles, two defensive ends, two inside linebackers, and they'll pull the nickel off the field. That should have been catnip to Will Stein to manipulate their defensive substitution rules. And he sort of does, but there's a wrinkle, which is if you put in one true tight end, a Patrick Herbert or a Trent Ferguson, and the other tight end that you put in is Kenyon Sadiq, they were treating Kenyon Sadiq like he was a wide receiver and were staying in nickel like that. And so initially Oregon would trot that configuration out, the Ferguson Sadiq configuration. And then we're like, wait a minute, you're still in nickel. Oh man, I had a play that I wanted to run that would have taken advantage of you being in 5-2, but you're in 4-2-5. Oh. So then they Now, I'll come back to that in a second. There are a couple of plays. There's on the fourth possession, Michigan gets pins Oregon back on a really nice punt, and they're on a first and 10, the very first play of that possession where they want to get out of the shadows of the goalpost, and so they run this little crossing route, and they go to 12 personnel, and it's real 12 personnel where they put both Ferguson and Herbert on the field. Well, now, what happens? Michigan goes to their 5-2. When they're in their 5-2 in that configuration, they're going to run this particular sim where, they crash in the ILB. That's when they have the inline tight end, who's Patrick Herbert, run a crosser. The ILB has crashed in. There's now nobody in that void. Gabriel drops back to the end zone, throws the crosser to Herbert. Herbert gets the 5 yards. Now they have some breathing space. They get out. That they get what they wanted specifically because they manipulated Michigan's defense. If they had gone to the 12 pers, which had Sadiq in it, they would have been in nickel. And they wouldn't have got that coverage look. They would have gotten a coverage look that probably would have been zone, and they wouldn't have. It was unpredictable. So like that, they got the good manipulation in that way. And that was like, good job, Will Stein. What they didn't do was the Punisher. So they used that Punisher, but they didn't use the other Punisher, which is, you're going to go to nickel when I am using my Sadiq 12. Well, then I should use Sadiq to wham block you on a run play, have Sadiq wham block, a linebacker and really get some, big runs out of that. And they didn't really they got like a 6-yard run out of one time and like an 8-yard run out of another time. But I really wanted to see some big stuff out of that. I really wanted to see, because Michigan's substitution rules, once they decide on them, I mean, they did have that wrinkle that they threw it in, but then once they decided on that wrinkle, they stuck with it 100% of the time. That's the thing. They're robotic. And anytime Will Stein finds a robot, like he's like, I'm going to program that robot. I'm going to hack that robot and program it to do my bidding. And so I was like, where are the Punishers, Will? And I was a little disappointed that we didn't see more of that. But maybe he felt like he didn't need to. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
he's like, we're going to win.
He's saving it for a real competition.
Well, when else is he going to play Michigan?
In the Big Ten. Wait, no. All right. I'm done with this game. We're moving.
Well, hold on. You didn't talk about the defense. The defense played lights out, man. And
they played so lights out that I'm done with them. Say what you want. Who do you want to say? They all did good. What are your thoughts?
If you're concerned about the fact that hey, you only had to defend one dude, that was, Colston Loveland, and they still didn't perfectly defend Colston Loveland, I'm frustrated by that too. If you're curious about who was the dudes who were it wasn't the nickelbacks or the corners, because he lined up at different places, and so therefore Oregon would have different guys defending him. I guess I'll say two things. Number one is every time I have noted this about a team and been like, man, Oregon could enjoy some advantages if they just stuck a dude permanently on this dude, like glue, like white on rice. They just permanently adhered a dude to their one guy. Lupoy doesn't take me up on the offer. He just we're just going to play our normal thing, which means if you line up in a different spot, I'm going to have whoever the normal guy is covering that guy. And so then number two, normal guy covering that guy. If it's a cornerback, he did fine. If it was the nickelback, Brandon Johnson, he did fine. If it was a linebacker, more spotty. Betcher was kind of spotty, and Devin Jackson gave up the one in the the one that was really annoying in the first half, where it's just like, Devin, this is play action. It's obviously play action. Drop. That was the one where there was that big hole in the zone where they hit it for 18 yards. And I'm like, Devin, what are you doing? Get out there. Drop. And it's like, I believe in Devin Jackson. I think that guy's the future. He's got, huge, tools. And I want him to have 100% grade on my tally sheet, because I think him having 100% grade on my tally sheet would make me more happy than anybody else, because the guys in the back end, like the 5 transfers that they've got playing the secondary, all those guys are like done after this year. It's going to be like all the Superman Junior, like Superboy, right? You know, who are going to grow up to be Superman next year. Like, well, I don't really get to watch them this year. Like, so I don't care about them. I care about Devin Jackson because I want him. He's the future, you know, so I want him to be perfect. And he wasn't perfect in this game. You know, am I making sense? Like,
yeah, makes sense. You've been talking about Devin Jackson, the potential of him for years.
And I mean, we're not going to see Bryce Betcher either because he's going to be a pro in something. He's going to be pro in baseball or he's going to be pro in football, but he's not going to be playing for the Ducks next year.
Yeah. Most likely,
but maybe he will.
No, I don't think so.
You
shouldn't.
You're going to be getting paid. Yeah. I mean, we're going to get to see him in the spring because he's going to play baseball.
Hell yeah. Oh, I want to take this moment here to shout out a true Eugene, Oregon legend. Rest in peace, Frog, the wonderful older man who sold joke books near the Duck store for decades.
No.
He pitched the same line. He'd always be like, have you heard the funniest joke book that's ever been written? For years, he said that he's gone to the great joke book in the sky. It's actually pretty touching to see the amount of people that have written stories about him and like news articles coming out and sharing stuff. So I got one of his joke books somewhere. The only joke I remember from it is a little inappropriate, but I will say it in his honor right now. Again, I didn't write this.
Dude, if you're about to say the N-word, I'm going to have to.
No, it's not that inappropriate. They were all PG. Kind except
they're
for
pee poo poo jokes. Got it.
You know what? I'm not going to say this. It'll tarnish his memory. It's not that bad though. Not at all.
Let's hit it.
But
Let's hit it.
It was what? It was in there. I don't know why it was so dirty. All of his other jokes were very clean, and then there was that one, and that's the only reason I remember it. He probably didn't want to be remembered by that particular joke, but he did write it. And I wanted to honor his legend.
I'm not for sure I totally get it, but I appreciate it.
Well, the more you think about it, the more not fun it is. But
it's not funny at all.
It was really kind of not very good. But it's the only one I remember of his. But he did actually write some good joke books. I didn't mean to do that one. I picked the wrong joke, but that's the only one I remember. He is a legend.
I'll say something uplifting. Jordan Birch played in this game.
Yeah.
They brought him back. He wasn't, prior to his injury, he was basically playing on every snap because the way that they had configured the defense was that he would be the big end. You know, now in his absence, they were going to something that looked more like a 2-4. So, Uyunglele, they'd have 2 down linemen, and then they'd have Uyunglele and then either like Winston or Tuiati. They sort of rotate through guys who I had pegged as OLBs. So therefore, I was classifying the defense as a 2-4. In this game, they would switch back and forth between a 2-4 and a 3-4, depending on, Michigan's configuration. And when they would go to the 3-4, that's when they would bring in Birch. So in other words, that's sort of different than how they were using him prior to his injury. I think that was a way to just limit his reps, in that he was coming back from injury. I sort of expect that later, maybe against Maryland, but maybe later than that, that they'll get back to the way that they were using him prior to his injury, where he's on the field, more regularly.
It felt more like he was just a little bit of like, he's out there, he's getting
probably missed some conditioning,
Okay. So. Are we done with the game now? Can we please move on?
I believe we officially are done. I was looking for a picture of Frog I saved to commemorate him, but instead I've just ruined his memory. So there you go. Let's get on to the next one. Here we go. The picks.
This game was so boring. I can't believe we spent an hour talking about it.
Well, there was some stuff happening. It's Michigan. It's still Michigan. It was in the
What I think is remarkable, Aaron, is what you just said. This was a game between the defending national champion. that went 15-0 last season, and like over the last 3 years is
As
something
cheaters.
like 42-3 over the last 3 years, playing the number one team in the nation in the largest stadium in the known universe, and it did not win its time slot, I don't think.
No, it was boring.
And you're like, I'm bored, I want to move on. The most attention that it got was gamblers being mad that Oregon won by too much. Like that. Can you believe that? Like, can you believe
awesome.
with that? Like, isn't that a remarkable situation? Like how like the different tracks that these programs are on?
Yeah, shows you got to cheat to stay on top. I agree.
Dude, Fortnite.
And here we go. Here's Frog with his beloved joke.
Oh, hell yeah. Frog looks badass.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's Frog for you. He wore a frog hat. He sold joke books. Some of them had inappropriate jokes. Most of them were just not that funny. But there he is. True legend. And that being said, on to the picks.
How old was he?
I don't know. I hope this really honors his memory. Let's get into bottom 11. I'll do the same for you when you pass. When you pass, I'll do the exact same amount.
Hey, you know what though?
I really doubt you're outliving Aaron.
That's true.
My whole life agenda has switched recently from being the goal of my life is to no longer achieve material wealth or notoriety, but rather to touch as many people positively as I can. Frog, I think, nailed that.
Yeah.
Because I've been touched now because you brought him up. So
yeah, he was a good guy. I talked to him multiple times.
Frog had it figured out, man. It's not about fucking money. They make you want to think it is.
I mean, he did sell the joke books for money. So there was a little bit of
But he's not trying to become a billionaire off of it. He's not trying to exploit the worker.
It's true. It's true. Rest in peace, Frog. Here we go. Bottom 11. StreamYard's being annoying, so now I have to take an extra step to share this. Bing, bang, boom. There it is. The bottom 11. Let's get into it. Well, we're in a we're in a conference called the Big Ten. There are 18 teams in the Big Ten. Number one in the country, but also in the Big Ten is, of course, the Oregon Ducks, also in our heart. Well, if we're number one and we're called the Quack 12, number 12, number 18, the very last one has to be Washington. So they're all,
but also 12.
They're also number 12. They're tied for number 12 and number 18, the bottom spot. In between all those are 16 schools in the 11 remaining spots.
Correct.
All here. And I got them somewhat organized in a somewhat way. Now, first of all, top tier.
Keeping it pretty regular.
Yeah, I still got Penn State up there because they lost to just Ohio State. It was a number 3 versus number 4. I put Indiana just in the very top because they're fun. They're undefeated. They rally.
It seems insane to me. That seems crazy that they're undefeated.
I mean, every once in a while if everything lines up, a team like Indiana can really start ripping them off. And they also haven't played the toughest competition, but they've looked really good against not the best competition. The game of the week was this Penn State Ohio State game, and man, did Penn State just do what they always do. They had every goddamn opportunity in the world, except their offense is still just one of those classic Big Ten offenses where they have to think of 10 different tricks to get 5 yards. And man, they had a pick 6 early. That was their only touchdown of the game. That being said, it was still a 1-score game, like late in it. They got to the goal line twice. Like first, it looked like they were going to really throw on take another lead. I forget exactly where it was, but an amazing interception from Ohio State where they literally ripped the ball in the end zone, or not ripped, but kind of collected the ball from a receiver, got a foot in, had clear possession, an amazing interception, ended up, negating that. like Penn State even knocked the ball out of Will Howard's hands, which then went off of his leg into the end zone and rolled out for a touchback. So like that really helped him out. Then at the end, when it was going to like tie the game, they line up at the goal line and they just try to run it in like 3 straight times. Like
stupid.
So goddamn dumb. Where it's just like, well, we're not going to overthink it. We're just going to run it right up the gut. And Ohio State's going to be like, well, it's Penn State, so they're not overthinking it. They're just going to run up the gut. And they just stopped them 3 times. And then the fourth
them
time,
4 times.
Yeah.
They stopped them 3 times, and then they tried to dumb pass that wasn't Tyler Warren.
That was never going to work. Like, everyone was blanketed 2 times over. And then Ohio State just runs out the clock. Like, damn, dude. Penn State
just
blew
a long. Yeah, they ate like more than 5 minutes off the clock. And
Yeah. And this is a 7-point game, but like, I was watching it in my head because I picked Penn State last week, and I was like, and like, basically, you would think I was like, I'd be happy, like, oh, they were so close, like I almost got it right. But watching this, it just made me like really come to the realization again. It's like, oh man, I fucked up so hard because this is the same Penn State team we've watched every week. The score is different. And the opponent's different, but it's the same damn team that we see every week and every year under James Franklin.
I mean, Penn State is now, the scenario in which Penn State makes the conference championship game basically requires Oregon to not make the conference championship game. And so I'm not going to be writing an article about Penn State, but man, I've been collecting film clips or time stamping them. For an article about Penn State, it would just be like, oh my God, this team, Oregon's going to run this team out of the building. They're so, bad's not the right word, but exploitable. And
that's exactly it.
And predictable.
Like, again, it's just like, if you can't consistently drive down the field against at least a pretty good team, I don't think you can beat Oregon full stop. Like, that's enough to look at. Like,
but then honestly, like, Ohio State at this point, we got, this game was actually the most interesting thing to me about this. I mean, those woes about Penn State folding on offense, both their capabilities and their lack of nerve, are not news. That's the rap on James Franklin for 8 years.
And this was at home, by the way, too, for Penn State. Like,
basically the play-in for the title game. Like, if it was ever going to happen. I mean, what I thought was really hilarious was them running out of the tunnel with the the banner that read like, history made here. And I'm like, what history do you think you're going to make today? The only possible thing that sign could be referring to is that this time we're finally going to do it.
Yeah.
And which, like, number one, like, what a left-handed compliment to give yourself. And then number 2, of course, Lucy in the football.
History is continued here is what it felt like.
So anyway, the news, or what was interesting about this game was how Ohio State's offense played against Penn State. Given that, the only thing that needs to happen for Oregon to see a rematch, or 2 things that need to happen for Oregon to see a rematch of Ohio State in the conference championship game is for Oregon to win out, which, is the outcome that is favored by Vegas. Obviously, there's no guarantees or anything, but they're going to be favored in each of their 3 final games. And for Ohio State to defeat Indiana. Because if they do, then they will own the tiebreakers against both Indiana and Penn State. The thing that is interesting about this game is Ohio State, only scoring 20 against Penn State but what's interesting to me, most interesting about the game, is that this game provided confirmation of like both sides of the coin, which is, number one, Penn State's defense is vulnerable to all the things that Ohio State wants to do. But then number 2, Ohio State doesn't have Chip Kelly's still a doofus.
Yeah.
Like, he still won't do them half the time. Like, this was a game that Ohio State could have won 40-10, but they didn't, because Chip Kelly's a doofus. Right, like, am I making sense? That, like, this simultaneously confirmed that Ohio State could do all those things, and that Ohio State doesn't have the play caller who will.
Yeah. Yep. It was honestly like kind of not a fun game. It was fun. It was frustrating to watch because I wanted Ohio State to lose because I don't want to play them again. But Penn State, damn, they are not fun to watch. Even if they're
is there
winning.
a world in which we could be playing Indiana in the?
Oh yeah, if Indiana beats Ohio State and then they keep winning, and I mean they may not even have to do that. Oh well, yeah, they would.
Yeah,
but, like, they beat Ohio State.
If they beat Ohio State, and then if they lose one more game, it would go to tiebreakers. And I actually don't. I mean, Ohio State would have the tiebreaker over Penn State, and
Indiana would have it over Ohio.
Indiana would have it over Ohio State, but I don't know how the Indiana versus Penn State tiebreaker would go.
Yeah, I think it'd be common. Yeah, which would probably be Ohio State, and since they beat Ohio State.
Which would be Ohio State, which Indiana would win. Yeah. So it would. I believe the next tiebreaker is record over highest ranked opponent, which would be Ohio State. So Indiana would win it. So yeah.
Well,
so that's going to be a big ass game.
Now I'm getting it, because now basically what you've shown, because Indiana being undefeated seems insane to me.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes sense that the universe is
insane to a lot of people. They basically put the conference championship game in Indianapolis because they're like, well, this will never be home field advantage for the Indiana teams because they're Indiana and Purdue.
Let's I'll remind y'all right now. The over-under for season win totals for Indiana coming into this was 5.5 wins. People were like, will they make the whole game?
Yeah. Which they eclipsed in week 6.
Yeah. Amazing.
Do you have on hand if I said over under that?
Both of you said over, I said under. So let's not look into that.
Got one in the bag, baby.
Indiana.
Good job,
so let's hop over to Indiana. Indiana actually played a game against Michigan State. Both teams kind of did exactly what they do, but they did it in a way, like the order was in a way where it was at least entertaining for a bit. As in Michigan State, things like Childs going out there and kicking, having some good success early on. They get 10-0 really quickly. Over
Indiana starts the game with 2 3-and-outs.
Yeah. And suddenly Michigan State's like, okay, we got something. But then, like a good team does, like that, Indiana's a feisty
and
defense.
You're right that Michigan State's 2 scoring drives to start the game. It's a field goal that's entirely fueled by explosive passing, and then a touchdown that's entirely fueled by explosive passing.
And then Michigan State's young QB starts making some mistakes. Indiana capitalizes, and they score, what was it, like 47 unanswered or something? Michigan State does not
47 unanswered. It's a touchdown drive, and then Childs throws an interception, and then they trade punts, and then it's touchdown, interception, touchdown, and then, it's the routes on at that point.
Yeah, they're a pretty dang impressive team. They got their star quarterback back, Rourke, from injury, so that was cool to see. Spread out the ball well. Indiana's got some fun receivers. They just kicked ass. They're a good team, and I hope they beat Ohio State because it'd be sad if they didn't. But and Michigan State is just prone to botching.
It's like they punt a bunch of times. They have one of their punts they botched and give Indiana the ball on a safety, which is why the score is weird. The 47, and then they turned it over on downs twice. The game's pretty much out of reach at that point. But then they go for it on 4th down, and I was curious, and I pulled those plays up because I was curious about them, and both of them, they're the first one is the first one is it's like 2nd and 9, and Childs goes back to pass, and he does something like real weird, and he gets hurt, and that's when they put in Tommy Schuster, and I can't tell if that's like Coach Smith like saving Child's dignity, like trying to preserve his mentality, or if he's like genuinely like hurt and like done, because it was like. I mean, I think the score was like, it was only like a 20-point deficit in the third quarter at that point, but like he had to know the game was over, like that they weren't going to come back at that point. And so it's like, it's genuinely, I don't know what the situation is with Childs. Like, but he had he'd thrown, I think, 2 or 3 picks. I think it was like 2 picks and one that it was like, oh boy, that was, it should have been. And so it may have been that he just pulled him to like preserve his sanity. You know what I mean? Like the confidence of a young quarterback, like don't destroy him. But it also like he kind of took this hit that kind of looked funky. So I don't know. Like it's genuinely a question for Michigan State going forward. Is like what
maybe he got his bell rung a little bit.
It kind of looked like it. But the thing was, it didn't look like that bad of a hit. It's not like he looked like he was destroyed. So I don't really know.
They still have a lot to play for, because I think there's a big difference with Jonathan Smith of coming in there with the young QB being like, we made a bowl game, or we went 5-7. I think there is a big difference. There's 3 games left. Illinois, which is we can talk about them next. Yeah. Even they're Illinois. Purdue, which is very gettable, obviously, since they've won 1 game this season, and then Rutgers to end the season. So everything's in front of them. Like, we'll see what happens. Indiana.
They have announced that they are expecting him to play.
Okay.
And it wasn't a head thing. Yeah, it may be just, but it could be an injury to his throwing arm. Like it could be to the wrist on his throwing arm. So like, I don't know, like they kind of, that whole offense is his throwing arm. So
yeah, no joke. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go over to Minnesota, Illinois. Minnesota still riding high on that elixir of confidence, because once again, they have not lost since they've taken it. And this time they took on, I believe at the time, a ranked Illinois. Shouldn't have been ranked, but hey, they deserved it. They had numbers next to their name. It was more of a certainly competitive back and forth thing. Neither offense looked.
This was the one game in the Big Ten this week in which it was. If you look at comparative EPA, like Illinois should have won, like Minnesota, and they were winning in the fourth quarter. And then Minnesota, runs off 10 points, and Illinois goes turnover on downs, fumble.
That was rough.
Like, they were outplaying Minnesota. Not a huge amount or anything, but like they were outplaying them a bit.
These were this game felt like 2 teams that aren't necessarily good at explosive plays, and then the explosive play is kind of defining the game a little bit.
Well, and turnovers, that's the other thing. I mean,
turnovers, were huge.
Yeah, I mean,
2 fumbles, was it 2 fumbles from
Illinois fumbles twice, and I don't believe that Minnesota turned it over at all, which like that was Illinois' calling card is they'd make you make mistakes and they wouldn't make mistakes themselves. And here's a game where it goes the other way around. They lose here it is, the turnover battle. They lost 0-2. So there it is, man.
Well, we'll see. Hey, Minnesota's been kind of fun a little bit, Reese. Like they do enough against mediocre teams to win, and that's cool.
I mean, basically, I would describe Illinois the same way that I was describing. I would describe Minnesota the same way I was describing Illinois going into the Oregon game. Right? It's just like they're an average team that basically knows what they're doing, but they have a talent cap, and they don't make mistakes. They'll take advantage of your mistakes, and so what happened when they played another team that was like this? It was determined by the team that made more mistakes.
The difference, the elixir of confidence. So that we'll see. I mean, hey, they're going to bowl games. That's pretty dang cool. We'll see what Minnesota can pull off too. I mean, 9-win season be pretty fun rowing the boat, and then they're gonna get blown out by some bull team. Another one that was
that's probably is what's going to happen. They're probably going to wind up overranked. And they'll draw an SEC team, and they'll draw like, I don't know, Ole Miss or something, and then Ole Miss will just rip their faces off.
We're all rooting for Ole Miss coming up here, playing against Georgia, by the way. But so another fun one, Northwestern Purdue. This was actually a tough one to call. It went to overtime even, and I don't know. I mean, I didn't watch this game. To tell you the truth, I watched some highlights. I read about it. I thought it was funny. These teams are bad, but this game is actually pretty crucial for determining who is the worst team in the Big Ten. And I think as of this moment, I mean, Maryland and Rutgers were on buys, so I just kind of have them in the middle here. But Purdue is clearly the worst team. Full stop. They almost beat Northwestern. They almost beat Illinois. So that should tell you something, even with their weird Illinois history. But Purdue is bad. They're bad. Yep. Full stop. You watch any of this game, Hith? I'm sure you did, but there's no reason to, I guess.
This was like the one game that I mean, there's like 18 teams. There's like, they play 9 conference games. I can't.
Oregon will not be playing.
They're not going to be playing. There's something like 72 or something like that. Conference games. I'm eventually going to have to, chart them all. But like, there's no reason for me to watch this game. I knew it was going to be terrible. I have not watched a second of it.
You were missing.
And it went to overtime. So there's more of it than there should be. No. Are you kidding?
Purdue, the idea that Purdue actually could have 3 wins if they won both those overtime games, but they're Purdue, so it's not going to happen.
They don't.
Yeah, exactly. Congrats to Northwestern, though. Win. That's good for them.
I got one, I think.
I think you did. I got it written down here, if you really want to know.
We'll get to it.
Well, no, now you're making me pull it out. So you went with Purdue, as did I.
God,
that was a tough pick 'em, honestly. It could have gone either way. Iowa, Wisconsin. I was watching a bit of this game because Wisconsin's coming.
I went with Northwestern, didn't I?
Yeah, you went with Northwestern. Wisconsin, Iowa. Wisconsin is in that bucket of they do not have. No offense to the guy. They don't have a QB that can put them in a position to win in any other way but being scrappy, having a lead somehow through like defense or special teams or the first drive and just holding on to it and uncharacteristically not making mistakes. Like that's the only way this Wisconsin team can win against a decent opponent.
They do make mistakes. I mean, that's what
that's what I'm saying. They make mistakes, which they usually do, they're going to get maybe blown out, which Iowa was very happy to do. I have the preliminary charting, worked out because they have a bye. Like it's actually interesting. All 3 of Oregon's final opponents have a bye before they play Oregon. Maryland does, Wisconsin does, but Washington does. With Washington, Oregon also has a bye before they play. But not true of Maryland and Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So both Maryland and Wisconsin have played all the games that they're going to play before Oregon plays them. So I've already gotten, all the work done on them. And I'm able to run out like the comparative numbers between Van Dyke, who's their initial starting quarterback, and Locke, who's been their quarterback since he got hurt in the Alabama game. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the numbers are very clear. Like Locke pushes the ball down the field more. Like he has 6.28 yards per attempt and a 12.9% explosive play rate, whereas Van Dyke's are in the toilet. It's like 4.9 yards per attempt, which is a joke number. Wow.
And like 4% explosive. However, their efficiencies are flipped. Van Dyke was 48% efficient, which is close to average. Locks is 41.4, which is you should not be playing quarterback. And that's over like most of the season and playing a bunch of bad teams.
And you can
they've got 3 conference wins and they're over the worst teams in the conference.
Yeah.
Right. It's over Northwestern and Rutgers and Purdue. And against Northwestern, over the weakest ass teams and Penn State with their not secretly Terabad, pass defense, and I forget the rest of their schedule off the top of my head, but it's like not the killers, not the greatest pass defenses. It's like 41.4%. Because his football IQ, like his ability to get tricked by opposing pass defenses is
specifically to just game-breaking picks I remember against Penn State and Iowa, and the QB play like damning them against USC, and it's not their only problem at all, but it's definitely probably their biggest because they have some.
Their other problem is they can't stop the run, which is like really bad for them. They're not bad. They're not bad against the pass. Although I sort of think that a large part of that is how weak their schedule has been. Like the best like I'm not kidding about this. Their best passing offense that they faced is Drew Aller. Which is,
for half.
They're an efficient running team, but they're the worst explosive running team in there's actually worse, but they're teams that they're not worth mentioning. Of the teams that are not complete jokes, they're the worst explosive rushing. So it's like 57% efficiency, but 4 yards per carry and 10% explosiveness rate. It's basically they're like super elite in short yardage, but then any other situation where they're running the ball, they're just like.
And Iowa barely had to pass against them to blow them out too.
Right. That's the other thing. They're
Iowa could be Iowa, which honestly credit to Iowa where they're doing their thing and good for them,
all you need to do against Wisconsin is get up to like a 10-point lead so that they have to pass the ball, and that's it. They're donezo. Like they need to be ahead. Like they need to play Iowa ball in order to win a game, like get a lead and then sit on you with an efficient but not explosive run game. Like that could be a dangerous situation for Wisconsin, but the other way around, like them playing from behind, forget it, man. Like that's what you saw in their Penn State game, which is probably the only game that folks might have watched with Wisconsin playing, because otherwise they played terrible opponents. Like or I guess you might have watched USC, or I guess if you watched the USC game, you might have seen a bunch of punt stuff. That's the other thing that needs to happen for them, is like crazy special teams things. But that aside, like if the other thing happen, if they get up to a lead and they're going to try to sit on it, but if you reverse that one on them and put up a lead on them, just forget it. They'll start throwing and they'll start making mistakes, and it'll just feedback loop on them.
Yep. Speaking of just an endless feedback loop of misery and hell, Lincoln Riley's USC Trojans go up to Seattle. I definitely, I'm not gonna lie, I had a parlay, and this was the final bit of the parlay, and I don't know why I chose his USC minus 2 points, and it was so.
Didn't you pick Washington in this game?
I think I picked
for the podcast purposes.
I think podcast purposes I picked freaking USC, which it was a game.
I mean, why USC should? I mean, USC was standing on the goal line down twice
in the final quarter, and they had nothing. And I loved. I forget their names. I didn't look it up. The commentators in this. You could tell they weren't watching a whole lot of USC football these last couple of seasons.
It was Jake Butt, who had never been to the Pacific Northwest before.
Really? Wow. Well, Jake Butt, both those guys did a really good job of just picking up the situation really quickly, just being like, USC, they really don't run when they should be running a little bit more, or being like, well, now they're in a spot where they just have to throw it, or just calling Lincoln Riley out for some pretty dumb shit, honestly.
Funny.
And Miller Moss didn't have a great game, but shit.
USC's final 3 possessions are interception, 15 play drive, turnover on downs on the goal line, 10 play drive, turnover on downs on the goal line.
God,
it was brutal, man. And the other thing is, one thing I loved, I forget his name, I'm sure you know him, Hith, but they were really calling
in a game in which they threw 2 other interceptions.
Yeah.
Right? So it was a 3 interception game and they missed a field goal.
I don't like rooting for USC or anything, but it was just like, I can't believe how much they're just bipping it. It was there in front of them.
They easily left 21 points on the board.
And the other clear problem, and I loved Jake Butt and them pointing this out, was just they're just ragging on USC's offensive line, specifically their right tackle. And him just being like they probably called it for at least 4 times on him, like false start, you know. But they were circling him, and it was actually really informative. I appreciated it, being like, watch this guy. They've already called it 4 times false start. They could have done it 10 more times, because every single time before they snap the ball, this dude's jumping 2 feet. Every single time. This game could have, USC should have and could have won this game. At the same time, this could have been them getting 0 points if the refs really were like, nope, I'm calling it every time. Well,
you got to make sure the game ends on time.
Yeah, literally.
You got to keep this thing on schedule.
It would have been 2nd and 60 if they really kept this dude honest. And I appreciate them calling it out, because then you could watch it and you're like, oh shit, this guy is
it's one of the things that you notice when you're doing, when I'm doing film study, I can because I will often watch a play because I can just jump back in time and then be like, did he jump early? And then I can watch it frame by frame, and it's you see it all the time. Guys going oh man, he's going a full half second early.
Yeah.
Are there a top 3 that you can think of that are big
the one that's most that you will recognize and get maddest about is the most recent Rose Bowl that Oregon played against Wisconsin. Their entire right side, their right guard and the right tackle would go so early. It was so early that Rob Mosley, normally a very never does this, was oh my God.
Yeah. That's why I appreciated the commentators calling it out, because it's very frustrating when they don't, and they're just being like, wow, looks like USC's O-line is really and it's just you
playing the narrative excitement guy.
Yeah, being well, the refs aren't calling it on, or they just don't see it. But it was nice for that. USC blows, and I would hate to be a fan. They stink out loud. I hope they don't make a bowl game, and it's very funny.
It's got to be the most infuriating thing. I mean, not I got a ton of sympathy for Trojans, because they're all sociopaths except for Alicia.
Michael, sociopath, but
she's I don't know. She's thinking the I mean, you just got to be fantastic at doing something for her. I don't know. The Cards Against Humanity, I think maybe he's just super funny.
He hates Halloween. He went on record saying he hates Halloween.
And that's fine. He could have been raised Pentecostal. You don't know. Shit could be weird for him.
He's raised raw.
Halloween's my favorite. Anyway, it's got to be the most infuriating experience, because I mean, they're not Purdue, right?
No,
they're Beach Purdue, but they're not just a team that's just terrible, or a team that's just been gutted like Michigan, where you sort of understand, what's happened to them. They're a team that there's no reason they should be this bad. They're a team that honestly should be I don't just
you mean with the talent right now, this team,
or whatever.
Yes,
I mean literally this team.
Yeah.
Should have I don't know, 7 or so wins,
and they should,
and they just keep blowing it,
a something that is going in their direction should be. And they have an amazing offensive coach who is the best in the cup. I mean, his reputation is freaking going in the toilet pretty quickly here by just and eventually you're going to run out of the excuse of well, there was a big O-line hole that he's had to replace over and over. In 1-2 years, there's not going to be any more.
I mean, like I'm getting close to being done, giving him some slack on that one too, because I mean, you look at the 2022 recruiting cycle. When he first got there, and he took 0 linemen, and it's like I was cutting you some slack in 22 and 23 because like that. You weren't going to have played a true freshman in 22 and you weren't going to have played a redshirt freshman in 23. But in 24, that guy would have been a redshirt sophomore. But now, that's the dog that didn't bark. That's the guy who's not there because you didn't recruit that guy, Link,
Yeah. And it's not like back in the day when recruiting was a lot more like kind of, like small potato, like it wasn't full national thing. So you could be like, oh, well, Oregon's, stealing a lot of stuff. It's like if Oregon wasn't where we're at right now, those recruits are still not going to USC. They're going somewhere else. Like it's bonkers. I don't think anyone saw USC looking like this far in the Lincoln Riley. Maybe people
it's not, the mistake. Hey, you recruited guys who were like lower than their normal profile at offensive line. I mean, he took nobody, like 0 goose egg. Like,
who knows? It's nuts though. And there is some good dang talent on that team. Hopefully some of them wise up and like we get Zachariah Branch in a Duck uniform or something, I don't know.
But I mean, like in the middle, I remember I was doing film study on the USC Washington game last year. Remember that where it was like 52-42.
Yeah.
And like I tweeted out some film clips that I was like, where I was like, look, the line play for these two teams is just stupid. And that was the year in which the Joe Moore Award Committee lost their fool minds and gave the Washington offensive line the Joe Moore Award. Was really just like, well, Michael Penix doesn't take sacks, and so therefore this must be a great line. You're clearly not watching film. And then look what Michigan did to him. And so like, I tweeted out like, look, man, there's one of the 4 teams that are going to the Big Ten is prepared for Big Ten line play. And it ain't these 2 teams, and it's certainly not UCLA. I got static from the usual quarters like, no, they're going to be great. And I'm like, no, it's not. Nope. And, what do you results? USC can't win a game, when they're line. You know why they got stoned on the goal line twice? Like, Washington got blowed up, no shit. UCLA, their one and only problem, really on the offense is their offense. And where's Oregon at?
Hey, last game we got to cover here, so let's get right into it. You just mentioned them. I didn't watch this game. I watched some highlights.
I did with quite a bit of interest.
Well, good. I'll tell you this. All I am is I'm legit. Good for you.
And Oregon, I just said I didn't watch Northwestern Purdue because I don't have to watch these teams anymore. I don't have to watch UCLA and Nebraska. I still watch this game because I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, I agree. It was pretty interesting. And conceptually, UCLA, they get a quick pick 6. Raiola gets injured in this one.
It wasn't quick. It was like to begin the second half.
Okay, yeah. So first half, something like that. They do enough on offense. They hold on to the lead, and Nebraska just ain't that good of a team. And honestly, I would love to see them play Colorado again because I wonder what that game would be like now.
I actually had the same thought when I was watching the game.
Yeah,
I bet Colorado would beat this Nebraska team.
Yeah,
like this Colorado team would beat this Nebraska team.
And that's their win. That's the win that they should be proud of this year. Otherwise, no. I mean, what do you got to say about this game? Because I didn't watch it.
Here's the thing, like the reason why I took UCLA, and I believe you did too. I think I did. I vultured you thought that you were going to get one over on me on taking UCLA, and then I vultured it from you, unfortunately. And then we were both right, I guess. All of those things came true. That UCLA, has a passing offense that is able to take advantage of Nebraska. Turns out it's a fraud pass defense. And so, they were able to move the ball and score points and they were able to disrupt Raiola. And then, and then Nebraska basically stopped scoring, at that point. It's not, however, UCLA still so like the shape of that is the shape that I expected it to be, and so it was the correct pick, but the size of that is not big enough, and that's why it was only a 27 to 20 win. So basically, and the reason for that is UCLA is not able to convert the third downs at the rate that they need to in order to actually be a good team. So like, just going through, third downs on their first drive, they do convert two third downs, which is basically the only ones they get in the entire games on that first drive, which may have been scripted. But then the third it was longer. It was like 14 plays. The third down of that drive, they get stuffed, so they have to kick a field goal. Next possession, they get a third down conversion on but just a scramble, like it wasn't planned. They barely got it. Then they get down to the red zone. They get stuffed, but Nebraska commits a face mask, so they get bailed out by a penalty. They get a touchdown on that one. And then they're done. The rest of the game, they do not convert a single third down. UCLA just fails to convert a third down for the entire rest of the game. I mean, it was like, no kidding. Look at the box score. It's kind of infuriating watching the game. They could not convert a third down. Every time it was third and long, they'd pass the ball. That was predictable, but it was also predictable that the pass would be incomplete. Like not just like they go for a screen and the screen would be stuff. I mean, it was incomplete every single time. And then, and if it was short yardage, they'd go for a run, and the run would always be stuffed. And it's just like the offensive line's just not good enough to beat Hutmacher and I forget the other guy's name. They're just not good enough to beat those two guys. They did get that pick six. That's the other reason why they got the score. And then they did get one more touchdown. It was on a long pass. It was a pass where the receiver got behind the defense. I think it was Loya. It was just a 1st and 10. It was early on the drive. They got behind the defense. They got a long score, but that, it wasn't a sustained drive where they converted a third down. So like, again, like I said, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. The UCLA's pass offense is good enough to beat the fraud of Nebraska's pass defense, where the goofball defensive back's not there, and so they get that touchdown. But like sustaining a drive, converting a bunch of third downs, no, their offensive line's not in good enough shape in order to do that. No. So
pick six ended up being pretty crucial, honestly.
Yeah. So like, I mean, basically this game played out exactly how I thought, but I guess, and this will be relevant when we're making picks, Aaron, you might want to pay attention. Like UCLA is the team that I thought it was. Nebraska is the team that I thought it was, but UCLA is not big enough to be the team that I'm really to have like as much confidence as I would like to.
To like make a bowl game or something. We'll see. They got a chance.
I don't know. They might. They might. Sitting on now 3 and 5.
It's possible. USC is one of the opponents. So
yeah. What is there? Hold on.
We'll find out
real quick.
You look that up.
USC. They got USC. Oh, that's other news about USC. They got a bye week this week, but after that, they're going to play Nebraska, winnable game, and they've announced that they're going to make the quarterback switch to Pavia.
Really? Wow.
The UNLV transfer, who's interesting. And I think, this is what I said in the offseason, having watched Pavia in Brand Marion's go-go offense, which is not the go-go offense is not Lincoln Riley's power RPO offense. But the thing about Miller Moss was that Miller Moss was not a Lincoln Riley guy. He was a Clay Helton holdover who was recruited to be a pocket passer. Or maybe like an Air Raid Graham Harrell type of guy who's supposed to stand in the pocket and deliver passes. And he's not really a skill set fit for Lincoln Riley's offense. He's just the guy who was there. And Pavia is much more clearly, a skill set fit for Lincoln Riley. It's just he came up in a different type of offense. And so I was like, look, Pavia's clearly the quarterback of the future. He's going to have to take some time to switch offenses, and I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be next year or it may be late in the season, and here we are. So that's actually going to be really, really interesting. That USC versus Nebraska game in 2 weeks. Is Pavia ready to run Lincoln Riley's
system?
Is that
Pavia related to Vanderbilt?
Oh, I'm maybe totally sorry.
I caught Hythloday. This is a historic moment for the podcast. Adam corrected Hythloday on.
We got to come up with a new tag that's like, got him.
I got it. It's not going to be used very often.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I got something to play. This will be good. This will be a throwback for us, Aaron.
Victory lap!
Woo! Adam was right about something.
Take that, Hythloday.
his name is Jaden Maeva.
There you go. I mean, I get it. I mean, everyone has Diego Pavia on the mind. He's a legend. He's the best QB there's ever been. I get what you mean, though. I mean, he's a backup QB at USC. I don't give a shit. Let's get in.
Well, you should. Oregon plays USC next year, and if he's good, Lincoln Riley does nothing but train up Heisman level quarterbacks.
That is true. And there you go. It's the rest of the team I'm not worried about. Okay, here we go. The picks.
The
picks. Oh, so annoying. I gotta go into this other page. Here we go. We're here. It's time to pick the big bottom. We are. Here's where we were last week. Hith and I were tied 78-78. Aaron a little further behind at 70.
It's fine. It's fine. Turtle
You
always wins. Go Terps.
That's right. You just need some, chaos. This week, though, Hythloday had a very good week. I had less of a good week. Hyth has expanded his lead by 2 points because the only pick that Hythloday got wrong, it was only one. I've got it written right here. Was
USC Washington.
That's right, USC Washington. Which
in hindsight, I picked against Washington at home, and I picked for Lincoln Riley.
That's what I was thinking too. But also it almost argued.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, it should have hit. It totally should have hit. But Lincoln Riley should have win a game. How often have we said that?
God damn. So Hyth's back in the lead here, only by 2 points, but we're getting down to the end.
Big time.
Now, this is an interesting one. Aaron, UCLA versus Iowa. Iowa is becoming pure Iowa. UCLA has won a couple games, which is pretty good for them, even without an O-line. That's pretty fun. Who you got? UCLA's at home. Rose Bowl is very historic. There have been games in which many a fan have gone there.
I'll go with Iowa. Regardless.
That is smart. I'm also picking Iowa because they are obviously going to win this game. It'll probably look a lot like when they played Washington, honestly. I think Iowa's going to boat.
Is that your crazy prediction?
Nah, it's not that crazy. I think they're just going to smack around UCLA. Basically because I think they'll just wait for you. I think UCLA will have enough 3-and-outs like Hyth has been saying. They're going to be bad enough on third down. Iowa will take advantage of that enough to get in the end zone. I don't think they're going to score, I think there'll be some defensive scores and some turnovers and field goals and then a couple of touchdowns, enough to put this game out of hand pretty quickly. Or not quickly, but by the end to look like a blowout. Hyth, who do you got?
I also have Iowa. I think by the end it'll look like a blowout. Sounds right to me too. I will. The reason that I went on that whole the shape of UCLA is the right shape, but they're not. The size of UCLA is not big enough. Was for trying to make this pick, because I think this is the only interesting pick of the week. I think the rest of them are gimmies. And the reason that I say that is if UCLA were UCLA, but instead of dwarf size, giant size, I would take UCLA, because giant size UCLA matches up against present sized Iowa really well. like, in fact, I think in the preseason when we were doing the win totals podcast, I think I might have picked UCLA to beat Iowa. The like, full strength UCLA would tear up Phil Parker's defense, and do enough to put Iowa behind the chains, to win this game like 30-10, something like that. But as I just finished doing with UCLA, I don't think that they will be full strength. I don't think that they'll do that. I think it'll look like, it'll be like 13-3 at halftime, and then Iowa will like they'll get like 2 late touchdowns, and so it'll finish like 40-10, and everybody will think it's a blowout, but really, it wasn't. Which, by the way, if you actually watch the Wisconsin Iowa game, that's kind of how it was too.
Yeah,
it was like 14-3, like more than midway through the third quarter, and it was just Wisconsin is a team that you can put them in a stress posture for a really long time, and that eventually they'll break, which, like, that's not true in real life. Torture doesn't work in real life, and it's immoral and counterproductive. But in football, it totally works, especially on Wisconsin. And I sort of think something similar will happen to UCLA.
There you go. Speaking of torture,
by the way, UCLA's schedule. So yeah, they're going to lose this to Iowa. That'll put them at 3-6, and so they would need to win their final 3 games to go to a bowl. But their final 3 games, I will go in reverse chronological order. Their final 3 games. The final game is Fresno State, which is a winnable game. Fresno State's not very good this year.
Also losable.
USC, which they get in the Rose Bowl, which, like, hey, if there's one game that
that'll be interesting. Yeah.
And their third to last game, the one that they're playing right after they're playing Iowa, the Washington Huskies.
Ooh, that'd be fun, but
it's at Husky Stadium.
Yeah, I'm not betting on UCLA to do anything.
I'm probably going to take Washington in that game. And it'll be hilarious because it will mean that Washington will go undefeated at home and winless on the road, which will be hilarious.
That is a good one.
But like, I'm going to be rooting the hell out of UCLA because, like, UCLA finishing out going to a bowl would be like, oh man.
I also love that win, undefeated at home and winless on the road. One of those road trips is a short bus ride to Seahawks Stadium. I do love that. Like, no, that's too far. You can't be playing that
with
far
the construction going on. It does take a minute.
Oh yeah.
Also, I would love to backdoor cover my over on UCLA. That'd be hilarious.
That'd be a good one. On to the next one. Number 3, Ohio State versus Purdue. Speaking of torture, Ohio State is gonna absolutely desolate Purdue unless Aaron thinks otherwise.
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
Are you sure you don't want to pick this as Purdue's second win of the season?
No. Definitely it can't be. It's an impossibility.
Aaron, I agree with you and I respect your decision. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to take Purdue if you want to change your mind.
Yeah, okay, no.
Okay. Makes sense, I guess. I'm going to go with Purdue to lose this game to number 3 Ohio State because water is wet, the sun is hot. Those kind of reasons. Is
the water wet to a fish, though, Adam? I ask you that.
You're right. I'm going with Purdue. No, I'm going with Ohio State. Hith, who do you got?
Well, Ohio State, obviously, but I'll place a meaningless prop bet on it, which is that Purdue will at some point during the game score a point.
Ooh. I'll put up a prop bet.
Therefore, Oregon will have the comparative, right? They'll have the bragging, right?
Oh, true. I got a comparative. This was what I would love. I think Purdue will score more points than Penn State. That would make me very happy.
That's fun.
You could be like more offensive touchdowns. 1. Yeah. No, this ain't interesting. I hope it'd be funny if it were, but no. Rutgers versus Minnesota. Minnesota running high. They're on a win streak. They've beaten USC. They've beaten Iowa. They've beaten other people I forget. Maybe Nebraska. I kind of forgot. Rutgers coming off a bye. They were hot for a minute, but not so much anymore. They are 4-4 though. So if they want to get to a bowl game, this could be a crucial one. Who do you got?
I think they got it in them.
They got it in them.
I think the problem here is something happened to me because I know nothing about this team, but I am just biased against Minnesota.
What?
For no real reason.
Oh, because Tim Waltz is from there. Is that it? I think he's from there. Wow.
Is he a Minnesotian?
He's originally from Nebraska.
Oh, he's originally from Nebraska.
Wow.
Is he a senator? And I should know these things. You know, it's kind of important.
He's the governor of Minnesota.
There you go. Yeah, he's the governor of Minnesota. Don't you know?
He seems like a genuinely nice man. I'm sure he's fine.
He's very nice. I like when he called Vance he called Elon Musk a dipshit. I love this era of
that
politics.
I can agree with.
Exactly.
That makes sense to me.
It's very funny. Oh no, we lost half our listeners. We're sorry.
I don't know that it's half.
No, I doubt it. They know we're libbies.
Oh, but Adam,
that?
I did want to remind the loyal listenership that we do have a new coin out there. It's called Duck Coin. And if you want to start investing now,
gotta invest. That's a really good one.
Head over to Patreon, give us $5 a month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, given the way that Trump treats his vice presidential folks, probably the Trumpies will be turning on Vance in any minute now.
I was arguing with my mom because I was like, I think it's legit funny that Mike Pence is like, yeah, I'll be your vice president, and then like flash forward 4 years ago, there is a lynch mob trying to kill him, led on by Trump. Like that is an objectively kind of crazy.
And he like signs up,
like oh shit, like it's objectively funny. Okay, Rutgers versus Minnesota. I think you honestly, Aaron, the position you're in. We are like, I need to be picking any kind of upset, anything that's reasonable, even a little bit. I think that's actually, you're in a pretty good spot.
Sure,
like Minnesota
Rutgers needs to have it.
Yeah, like Minnesota is the better team right now, but Rutgers is coming off a bye. They're at home. They know they want to get to a bowl game. I'm going with Minnesota because I'm close enough to Hyth, or I don't need to be taking big. But I wouldn't be, I think you made a good pick. Hyth, what about you?
I have Minnesota. Fire sale on Rutgers. Minnesota's good enough to beat bad. Like all they've done is beat bad teams. So and Rutgers is a bad team. So
you saying Rutgers has got office furniture up on an auction site somewhere trying to fucking get rid?
Yeah, basically. I heard that there is a what's the word? Talisman? Is that the word? The ancient kind of thing? Yeah. There's a talisman of confidence. Of competence.
Antidote.
No, this is what Rutgers has. I heard.
Oh.
This is on the boards. There's a talisman of competence, which I'm hoping cancels out.
Oh, I haven't heard of this one.
I just made it up. This is the main reason. but if they win, I think that's why. Number 8, Indiana versus Michigan. Interesting.
I hate this game.
I kind of get
this game.
It.
This is easy. Indiana wins this game. I know I keep saying it's insane that they are
undefeated,
lossless, but they're going to win this one too. And it's solely so that they can ensure a spot in the Big Ten championship so that we can destroy them. That is their whole purpose.
If I were in your situation, I would be picking Michigan I
can't defy the universe.
No, I
Adam.
get you. I get you at the same time because it's like this. Michigan sucks. Indiana's going to be at home. They're now a top 10 team. Not that really matters, but they are a top 10 team. Their fan base is going to probably pack that place out in a way it hasn't seen since ever. What?
Can we please enjoy the fact that while we sit atop at number 1, you're casually like, they're number 8. Not like that matters.
It doesn't. Does it make you better? If it can only make you worse. That shit is rat poison, my friend. But like, are we a better team because we're number one? No, but we're good.
Right.
Keep it up. The Beavers just scored a touchdown. Number 8, Indiana versus Michigan. There's like, it's only due to Michigan being Michigan. I mean, we just saw what Michigan is. They're not winning this game. They don't have a passing game. It's amazing that they even beat crappy old USC, and it was pretty fluky that they did that. I think number 8, Indiana, is just too dang good. Beaver score again. So I'm going with
vacuuming right now.
There's some construction next door.
Yeah, there's some renovation work going on in my building.
We've actually gotten pretty lucky. There hasn't been much at all, but I'm keeping it in. I think it's funny. So
I just like to think that Hythloday is casually vacuuming while we're talking because he's like,
he's like, I'm done with this shit. we're talking about Michigan.
He's like these
football,
fucking nitwits.
Yeah. Now the air raids start. I guess you know who won. I think, it's got to be Indiana. It would suck if Michigan won. It would genuinely be kind of heartbreaking. But maybe it's a look ahead thing. Maybe Indiana's sleeping on Michigan. But no, they're not. Indiana's going to win. Hith, who do you got?
I have Indiana. The couple of, the pillar and the Parthenon thing, like the stuff that Michigan remains good at just doesn't match up with as I have been noting, as I've been sort of anticipating a potential game between Oregon and Indiana. I've been watching Indiana's film, and I do actually think Indiana's not really a complete team. Like, they have some vulnerabilities just that most teams can't stand up to their passing offense well enough to take advantage, to keep themselves in the game long enough to exploit those vulnerabilities. And so you don't really see them. But unless you're watching the film closely, however, those vulnerabilities do not match up well with the pillars left in Michigan's Parthenon. And so I don't really think that Michigan's set up to pull off this upset. Yeah.
It'd be a bummer if they did.
Like, they're set up to take away a run game, and they're set up to, smash a ball down somebody's throat. And neither of those things are going to be helpful in playing against Indiana.
Yeah, I agree. Again, Illinois beat this team. So, number one.
I mean, Illinois is actually a team that they'd be set up to do okay against.
Yeah.
It's just they turned the ball over 3 times. If they've actually fixed the turnover problem because Davis Warren has stopped doing that, then a Davis Warren led Michigan. If Michigan played Illinois again, but instead of Jack Tuttle with, injury and turnover prone Jack Tuttle, they had this Davis Warren. I kind of like them to beat Indiana, or I'm sorry, Illinois. But that Illinois team, which I would have liked Michigan to beat, is not this Indiana team. This Indiana team has a different set of vulnerabilities, and those sets of vulnerabilities do not match up well with this Michigan team. So therefore, Indiana is going to do very well against them. Sorry, man.
I just don't get
Indiana, Illinois. There's too many I teams and there's too many M teams in this league.
I hate this league, and this conference, and the sports.
USC has not beaten a team that has started with the letter M. And they went from a league that had no M teams to a team that's got 7 M teams.
Have they ever beaten a team with M?
Oh, that'd be good research.
That's some good research.
Writers look that one up.
That actually seems like something that, if they never have, that could really take off.
I'm sure they played Michigan a bunch in the Rose Bowl. They probably they always win the Rose Bowl against the old Big Ten, so that's probably the case that they beat
okay. While you're doing that, I'm absolutely looking up some Winsipedia. So now we got an easy one. Hopefully, either it's going to be one of the worst week in all of our lives, where we lose to Maryland at home as number 1 Oregon. I am knocking on wood now. Or it's we beat them. Handedly at all.
And Aaron yells at me again for talking too much about a game that bored him.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna happen.
Or
they have beaten Michigan 5 or 6 times, unfortunately. So
nice.
I mean, Michigan.
Or Adam.
Yeah.
Something miraculous happens.
Oh.
And this is also where I have to bring in my crazy predictions.
Oh.
This game is going to end in a tie and a handshake because we will come together as brothers
This is bad.
from coast to coast in acknowledgement of how cool we are with each other.
So we just take the tie, which is not allowed. So it's not allowed.
It will be because they'll handshake and they'll call it over.
So you want me to write tie?
Yes.
What happens if it's not a tie? Is that a loss? Is that a negative?
That's a
doesn't
loss.
count as a point. Doesn't count as a point.
It's a loss for humanity. It's what it is.
Hith, are you down with? Are you down with? If this is a tie, Aaron gets 2 points.
Yes.
You should write down. Yeah, sure. If it's a tie, Aaron gets 2 points, but you should also just write down that Aaron picked Oregon.
Okay. Technically, you picked Oregon.
I don't know. The handshake feels like it's really going to happen.
That'd be amazing.
There will be a handshake at the end of the game, so therefore, Aaron's going to get a
For
point.
this to be a tie, it literally, I feel like it would be like, again, knock on wood, all of Eugene, Oregon is on fire, and they had to cancel the game, and they shook hands, and they went their own way. That's like what has to happen.
It's like when you go watch the Harlem Globetrotters play a team.
Yeah.
Well, they want to make sure it stays even because they're good guys.
Against the Washington Generals. I don't know if they're good guys, dude. This is a pretty poor sportsmanship. Pantsing someone on court.
There have actually been in the history of that game frequently games in which the Globetrotter, because usually they actually get like a real team to be the Generals. But it's like a high school team or whatever in the history of that organization, and then they lose track of what the score is because they're having so much fun goofing around, and then the Generals accidentally win the game.
I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard at least once I know of the Generals have won because they also like to have it be a dramatic comeback. So they'll be like, oh, we're behind 6. And then they hit 5 3-pointers. But it's like, if you miss the 3-pointers. By the way,
it's all for charity, baby.
Oregon basketball's back. That's how much we're going to cover it. Washington.
It was actually a really fun game last night. The UC Riverside game.
Yeah, no,
I mean, it was really only close because Riverside like they went on this crazy run of 3-pointers, and then their 3-point luck ran out. But the game was tied at 28. For a while there, it was a good game. The teams really, I think. It looks like they've gelled into good shape way sooner than usual for a Dana Altman team. Like, I'm really looking forward to watching.
And the injuries are not devastating right at the beginning of the season. That's different. I know there are some rough ones, but usually it's like our best player is out for the season.
But the young, like Kwame Evans and Jackson Shellstat, which we got a glimpse of how good those guys could be as true freshmen last year. Look real good. Real good.
But this is not a basketball podcast. This is only a football podcast right now. And women's basketball, I still have no faith until I see them against more people. But they are looking significantly better.
They put the hammer down on Cal Baptist. All right.
Oh, well, never mind.
Philly's looking more and more like a real basketball player.
They're winning a natty. They
got Peyton Scott back, who's really what the problem was last year. They didn't have a point guard. And they have a point guard now, and she's good.
They do look like a team. I'm literally not going to give them any credit until the end of the season when I see how many good players stick around.
They hurt you, but good.
We got an exclusive interview with Kelly Graves. It went on for half an hour, in which he's extremely candid.
He really is.
He says stuff that your jaw's on the floor that you're like, I can't believe a coach said that.
He used stuff that I took out from that context, and I quoted and I said, this is why we need to fire this guy. That's how candid he was.
Yes. It was it's absolutely, there's stuff a bunch of people did the same thing.
Yeah.
Even in context, it's I can't believe he said that.
He literally said, he was like, last year, I just kind of, my heart wasn't in it. I got a little, there's apathy. It's like, oh, you get paid millions. Yes. Oh, you should be fired then. It's insane. Anyways, Final pick.
I have to go listen to this thing.
It's at Addicted to Quack.
Yeah, it's a really good interview.
Listen to the whole thing, and we got in the entire transcript in case you don't want to listen.
Oh wait, you mean you literally talked to him?
Not
me, Badwater, one of our reporters at Addicted to Quack. Yeah,
Whoa, what a get! I've been trying to get Adam to get that motherfucker on the show for years so I can fucking scream at him.
Well, maybe if I hadn't been talking shit for the last 3 years about him, Addicted to Quack has gotten a much better
great
website.
Get for sure. Hey, you know what? I'm going to actually say it. People, you should actually maybe go over there and check out this website.
Go over to Addicted to Quack. We got one more pick to make, though. And it's kind of a fun one. It's kind of a fun one. Number 6.
You didn't pick Maryland. I didn't pick Maryland.
Yeah. Sorry. I assumed Oregon. You want to go Maryland?
I'm also picking.
Okay.
Oregon.
Also,
I earlier in the podcast talked about Maryland's defense, where like the only thing that they're any good at is somewhat good at rush defense, and really only in the middle. If you go to the outside, you can run against them all day. They're passing. They don't have a rushing offense. Interestingly, like the one sort of interesting thing about their offense is. So, like, of the 9 Big Ten teams that Oregon plays, like 6 of them have like a good pair of wide receivers. It's actually kind of contra the reputation of the Big Ten. Like Oregon plays like a bunch of teams with good wide receivers, like UCLA, Michigan State, Ohio State, Illinois did, Washington, one more I'm forgetting. Unlike the other 5, though, which, they have good wide receivers, but they also want to run the ball. Maryland's the odd man out where they have good wide receivers, but they suck at running the ball and they don't care. And so they pass the ball like 60% of the time, or it's like 55% on first down, but then it's like all the time on subsequent downs. So it's like it averages out to 60% of the time. It's like they're constantly, throwing the ball. It's mostly short passes. Their offensive line sucks. It's like god awful, like how bad it is. And the way they deal with how just absolutely god awful their offense, which is of course why their rush offense sucks, is you can't open a single hole. The way that they deal with how awful their offensive line is that every pass is a super fast pass. It's like there's no it's an RPO, so it's instantaneous. There's only one guy in the pattern because it's an RPO, or they're filling the void on a blitz, which is why you should not blitz on early downs. You should only blitz on third down, third and long. Or it's a throw down it's a prayer shot. You know what I mean by a prayer shot? Like it's a throw down the sideline where it's like take the snap, throw the ball down the sideline, because they got good wide, 2 big, good wide receivers where it's like take the snap, throw the ball down the sideline to the wide receiver. And I hope that guy beats the cornerback, because if I do, it's like 40 yards. And if I don't, I'll probably not be intercepted, know? And so that's why they got destroyed by Minnesota, was that Minnesota kept picking those off. And against other teams where they've gotten, wins, like USC, for example, they hit a couple of those, and then USC applied the stupidest defensive strategy. It's actually the thing that caused me to lose the most respect for D'Anton Lynn. Remember, he was the UCLA's defensive coordinator last year. And then the big question mark where they had finally a good defense for the first time forever under Chip Kelly. And the question was that D'Anton Lynn, or was that, the good pass rushers they had? And then they've been USC's defense had been performing better this year than they have been in recent years. Then the question again was, is that because D'Anton Lynn is actually good, or is he just, lifting the Alex Grinch suppression field? And is he just like replacement value? And the conclusion that I came really was crystallized by watching the USC versus Maryland game, in which they repeatedly pursued the stupidest defensive strategy that you could against Maryland, which was blitzing on early downs against a team that throws like 14, closer to 15% screen passes, which don't blitz against the screen, dumbass. And, is a quick passing offense, and they're blitzing on early downs. And like, even though they had all the data that they needed through the first 3 quarters, that's what they were going to do, kept doing into the fourth quarter. And so they give up USC had a 14-point lead and their defense screwed them into losing that game. Danton Lynn, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. Yeah. So, hey, Tosh Lapoy, I really hope you watch that tape and do not blitz on early downs against a screen and quick passing offense. I'm going to be really mad at that guy if he screws this up with a hyper aggressive early down defense.
He's telling us there's something to watch. It's been fun. And then last but not least.
Oh yeah, if you're asking me my specific prediction, that's going to be it. Is I'm going to be they're going to blitz on some early down. Maryland will hit a quick pass, against it, or a screen pass against it. They'll go for a big 30-yard play, and I will throw something and break it, break something in on my room.
I like how part of your prediction is something that you'll do. So that seems
right.
And you did.
Well, if you keep drinking those triple IPAs, baby, I can only imagine things get buck wild.
And Hith technically did get. It was a low hanging fruit prediction, but you nailed it. Yes, they're going to mention the Statue of Liberty.
Run the film retrospective on it, the first opportunity they have. Let's show the Statue of Liberty film.
And theirs was kind of more we're bored.
It didn't even make sense. At that point that they ran it was just let's just do it now.
They're we have the footage
together. So
they're we're bored. We have the footage. Let's just do it. Technically, Oregon's quarterback is on the field, and they were also on the field on that play. So, number 6, Penn State versus Washington. This is Washington on the road. They haven't been very good on the road. Number 6, Penn State. They haven't been very good on offense, but good enough to only have one loss. Penn State at home, even though their fans were not happy with them in that game. In fact, they were straight up booing their own team at the end of it. They'll still show up. There's nothing to do in that, city besides Penn State football, and so they'll be there. They'll be loud. It's against Washington.
Was there an you're a horror movie expert? Was there an M. Night Shyamalan movie in which called I think The Village?
Yeah.
Where I'm not revealing any twists to anybody who'd actually be interested in watching a good movie, because I just said it was M. Night Shyamalan, where the twist was it was not actually a colonial era 1600s village. Yep. It was just surrounded by haunted woods that they couldn't leave, and then it actually was in modern times.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Happy Valley.
Yeah.
Happy Valley is a village that's surrounded by the haunted woods of Pennsylvania that they can't leave.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that the woods were haunted, Hith. I think they
told them it was
the
haunted,
myth was that they were. Right.
Well, the reality is that it's Pennsylvania, so it's you definitely don't want to go poking around central Pennsylvania.
Oh,
it's
brother,
hard to get out there. It's hard to get
dueling
out there.
banjos will start.
Hey, I'm telling you, I ended up in somebody's backyard one morning after a great evening at the base of Mount Rainier, and I was greeted by a woman who said, "Had you shown up 3 hours earlier, I would have blown your head off."
Oh my God. There you go.
So they're everywhere, baby.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Adam, this one's crazy.
And they vote, so get out there, everybody. Number 6, Penn State versus Washington. Who are you going with?
Washington.
Really?
I know. I have to go crazy on this one because I just think.
Oh, I know
you said they're mid, but I feel like Penn State is mid, and they're just
part of them.
They're like a reverse wolf in sheep's clothing. They're a sheep in this tiger
in a coup.
Man,
mountain lion. For me, I think Penn State has enough, and they're pissed off. I could see Washington making it a game. I just don't think Washington has as much closing energy. Even the games they're winning a lot, they're either blowing them out because they're way better than the other team, or the other team's just kind of choking at the end, like USC. So I'm definitely going to go with Penn State. Aaron, I wanted to circle back, give you an opportunity to maybe change your Ohio State Purdue pick. Do you want to go with Purdue? Just double check it. I saw that I circled it here.
Is that not who I went with?
No, you
went with Ohio State.
Just kidding. Of course I want to keep Ohio.
All right.
Christ at the Last Supper 3 times.
I tried. Try to betray him with a kiss. I'm going with Penn State.
Sure. I'm also going with Penn State, although this is a game where like I actually like the way that Washington matches up with Penn State quite a bit. And if this game were played at Husky Stadium, I would be sorely tempted to take Washington. But this team just plays like just dog shit on the road. And yeah, I think that Penn State will this game. It won't quite look like the Iowa beatdown because Penn State plays at such a slow pace of play. It'll look more like the Illinois game, where it finishes, like 21-7, or 28-14, something like that. But if you actually watch the game, it'll like slow strangulation, the boa constrictor thing, where basically Washington's going to try to hit, passes to I mean, this is going to sound like the most like stupid, reductive explanation of Washington's offense. They're going to try to hit passes and run Jonah Coleman. But basically they're going to miss by inches. They're the kinds of throws that they would make at Husky Stadium, or they're the kind of passes that they would break at Husky Stadium. But because, Penn State's playing at home, they're just by their fingernails, they'll make those stops. And then Penn State will get the ball back and then just go on like a 16 play, eat 8 minutes off the clock drive, and then Washington will be in desperation. Like Washington, Jed Fish will get into desperation mode and it'll just spiral.
He's also already given up on going to a bowl game. I know he had like a quote where he talked to his seniors. He's like, "You guys only have like 3 games left. You got to really appreciate it."
Wow. What's up with the coaches this season just bearing brute honesty?
That is weird. It is weird. I agree. Okay. So here we go. That is it. We picked the big bottom. I hate that Hythloday and I picked every single one, but literally it's a week where that's going to happen. And next week actually is a pretty good one for some real picking, where it's like UCLA, Washington, Oregon, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Northwestern, Penn State, Purdue. Those are probably all givens. But Michigan State, Illinois, Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska, USC. There's some choices to be made there.
Bro, I'm going to call it right now. Purdue is going to take down Penn State.
Oh, so you think they're going to take down
that's
Ohio
when they get their
State?
spoiler maker game.
Penn State is spiraling.
You think
that game is in West Lafayette?
You think Purdue's going to beat Ohio State and then beat Penn State? Is that what I have?
No.
You did not say they're taking Ohio State.
They're going to get
you don't
so
get
hot.
4, Adam.
Yeah, they're going to get so hot about losing to Ohio State that they're going to be playing with legitimate rage.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. I mean, Hythloday, you already got a pick. You already got a super specific prediction that'll cost you some money in the end, it sounds like.
No.
Aaron? Huh? You got a super specific prediction for Oregon versus
I said it.
a team, Maryland. What'd you say?
Game ends in a tie.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a ceremonial handshake while we all listen to and enjoy the full suite of Terrapin Station.
Whoa.
It'll be a coming together of brotherly love. No mortal is prepared for.
Can I add to, I want to add to yours for you.
Please.
I think if they play Terrapin Station, that alone, I think you should get some credit for that. Because that's a good one with the guy dying and
the guy.
I don't give a shit about Grateful Dead, all right? As someone who lives in Eugene, I have to double down on that. I like about 3 of their songs. Otherwise, I've never heard a band like a band that's known for like singing like in harmonies miss every single fucking note of a harmony. I've never heard that before.
Bro,
outside of the
know
Grateful
that
Dead.
I would say that is what they're known for, is their harmonies.
They should.
I would say more for the fact that they write the greatest music of all time.
Oh my god, I had no idea you're such a deadhead.
They are a top 3 for me.
I like Friend of the Devil, I like Casey Jones. There's a couple more songs I like.
Well, yeah, that's a great record. That whole record is great front to back.
Well, you know what?
They're top 3.
Speaking of record and top guys, as a favor to my man Frog, I'm going to go back into this episode and I'm going to censor the joke I told of his to keep his memory honorable.
I love though that you also said that's the only one I remember.
It is the only one I remember because all of them are so like he clearly went to the library, found the most mundane joke books, and then wrote like literally why is 6 afraid of 7?
He changed duck to chicken.
Why is 8 afraid of 9? Is that it? I forget that. You know, yeah, he just does the thing, and then there was one incredibly vulgar, cancelable joke. But no, I'll go back.
It's why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9.
Because 7, 8, 9. That's right. Yeah, that's typical. Rest in peace, Frog. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Frog. R.I.P. Phil Lesh.
Is that the Grateful Dead guy? Yeah. All right. And maybe rest in peace, democracy. All right. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks, Hythloday.
It never existed.
Thanks for hopping on this for unhinged episode.
And now I'm getting out of here and do some work in a coffee shop where they're not doing construction, hopefully.
There you go. Yeah, Beavers scored a lot today. It's crazy. They'll win another game. See y'all next week. Quack, quack.
Quack, quack.